There's no bullshit in the SAS. This is a job. You get on with it and do it. Most people take themselves off selection. They don't get a fail just because they ain't good enough. You've got to be willing to die on it, I think, because you can't just say, right, I've had enough. When you're behind enemy lines or you're on an operation or you're in combat, you've got to train as close as you can to real combat. It's all right being pushed to your physical limits, but when you get pushed to your mental limits, resistance to interrogation, where you're being hunted and being run down. So by the time they capture you after so many days and nights, you're completely knackered. And you've got professional interrogators interrogating you. I remember just hallucinating, and then you're trying to remember what you've got to do, and your body's in pain and run down. It's amazing what the human body can do if you really want to do something.
What was it like experiencing death in combat?
When you're further away, you just see a target go down. It can be like a computer game, you don't see the aftermath. But then when you've been in a situation, and I've had to use my weapon like a modern day club because I was trying to capture somebody, you saw the life go out of him, you heard his last gargle. It was years later that you start getting these sort of flashbacks, night sweats or just nightmares. But you know, that's part of the job, it's now and again, so it's just part of life.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers, and today, for once, we're actually in the UK, talking with ex-SAS Sergeant Major Melvyn Downs. He's one of the most incredible guys, one of the most friendly guys I've met in a long, long time, but has some of the most interesting stories and truly inspiring stories, full of action. But he's also a public speaker and has authored the book Unbreakable, which I really recommend, and tons of our friends of the channel like Billy Billingham also recommend, who wrote the foreword, I believe, as well. So that is linked down below if you want to get a copy of that. This story will absolutely blow your mind. He talks about all the different things, but one of the things that really hit me in the heart was the racism that Melvyn grew up with, that he had to face on a day-to-day basis, from physical abuse to harm to racial slurs. It was absolutely awful. Some of the worst stuff I've ever heard. And he talks about it in this interview. But the thing that might surprise you is Melvyn is one of the most prideful, proud British people that I know. We talk about that as well. So this is one of the most interesting stories of a man who served his country and put his life on the line for many, many years, has some incredible stories to tell for it, and also has some really, really inspiring stories too. So let's dive into Melvyn's story. Just a little bit before that, sorry guys, I forgot to mention this badge that I've been wearing for the last few videos is a deeply personal cause that I'm trying to help promote at the moment. So this is for Baby Loss Awareness Week. As you guys might know, that's something that's affected me, and I know that it's affected some of you guys and probably some of your friends and family as well. So it's linked down below. I've put it's a petition that SANS, the charity I'm working with, are trying to get filled. Is to help create funding for people who are experiencing mental health around baby loss and stillbirth. There's a few signatures that need signing. If people from this video went there right now, we could get it signed for the charity right now. So please, if you love these videos, if you love the work that we do, take a few seconds out of your day at some point just to do that. Honestly, it's a super quick one. If you're from the UK especially, it's really helpful. Thank you so much. And as a thank you, we are doing the giveaway, guys. So from a few of our sponsors, you might hear about Timeline at some point in the next few of our videos. That's helping sponsor some of our videos at the moment. These are incredible. Mito Pure Gummies. Element, you've heard of Element. We're doing a month supply of Element. We're doing some Mulligan Brothers merchandise. Yeti have given us some customized mugs to help support the cause as well. So if you want to get involved in that as well, just drop a comment down below. It's that simple. If you enjoyed the video, drop whatever comment you want from the video, something you learned, something that inspired you, something that you wanted to share of your own story. Drop it down below. I'll pick a winner in the next video. You just need to be subscribed. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Then you can find out, in the next video who won. I'll drop you a message underneath the comment. And the winner of the giveaway last week on the Tom Statley video is Nakurai. And I checked, he is subscribed. So if you can get in contact with us, Nakurai, drop us a message and we will get this shipped out to you. And comment and subscribe and hit the notification bell on this video if you want to be entered into the next prize draw. So how we usually start is just introduce yourself by your name and what you're known for.
My name's Melvyn Downs. I'm an ex-sergeant major in the British SAS. I did 24 years in the British military, 12 in the SAS, and then I went away training special forces around the world for another 14 years. So I've got a lot of experience of doing that type of job. But I'm also like to give my experience back to others now.
Yeah, and I want to say for the audience, like, I did a lot of research for this on your book, and there's so much depth there that we'll try and cover some of it, but we're not even scratching the surface. So we'll cover as much as we can today. There's tons of lessons to take from that and apply to people's lives, and I think people can do a lot of self-improvement with the book alone. It's absolutely fantastic. But let's give some backstory to this. For an American audience, where did you grow up? What's that like growing up back then as well?
Yeah, well, I was born in 1964, so like I'm 60 years old now. And I actually grew up in a massive council estate. At the time, it was the largest council estate in Europe. It was called Bentley, and it was in Stoke-on-Trent. And the difference in this estate was basically, it was mainly white, working class, miners and labourers and so on. And somebody coming from an ethnic background was very rare. For instance, I know I can count on one hand out of about 11,000 people on that estate, how many people were from an ethnic background, either from the Caribbean or India. So that on its own created a lot of problems when I was growing up. So for things like, obviously, social problems, racial problems, it was quite difficult. However, I actually now, looking back on it, that helped me make the person who I am now. So the odd stuff I went through as a kid growing up on my estate, it just made me more resilient and, to me, a stronger person. So I could thank anybody who was being a bully towards me.
Your mentality around it's incredible. Like, especially, I think it sounds like from a young age you felt that you were able to discern the difference between racism and like a misunderstanding or not knowing. I think he was quite forgiving of people a lot of times if they'd maybe said the wrong thing to you or stuff like that. Like, was that something that your parents told you to do? Was that something that you just picked up by yourself?
Yeah, well, I learned it from my dad. My dad, he came over in the original Windrush era. And for the American audience, I don't know if you know about Windrush, it was when it's named after this ship, a lot of people came from the Caribbean, especially Jamaica, were over to help rebuild the UK after the Second World War, something like 1948, I think that was. My dad came over in about 1952. So it was quite an hostile environment. He thought he was coming to the motherland and, we all going to be welcome. And it was quite difficult for him growing up, but he didn't really talk about it. I learned mostly from his friends. And it just so happened his friends were either mostly Caribbean or Irish people who were white. And they actually had a bad time of it when they were coming up. Because this was at the time when it's like, there was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish was on the windows of hotels and so on. So imagine that, no blacks, no dogs and no Irish. Imagine being a black Irish wolfhound. Yeah, you got to have a laugh. Well, that's what it was like, really. You just couldn't believe it in this day and age. And it's not that long ago. So it was just sort of that mentality, people, you're a bit different and people treated you like that. However, I made such good friends there as well. And it just made me realize there's good and bad in everybody. It doesn't matter what race, what religion, what gender, and so on. I take people as people, and that's what my dad taught me. A good person's a good person, a bad one's a bad one. You just crack on with what you want and just stand up for yourself.
I mean, there's tons of different stories I think you tell in the book about the racism that you faced as a kid, that your family faced. I think one of the biggest ones that was really interesting to me, the way you listed it, you said, I've been in this war zone, I've faced death, I've faced all these things, but the scariest thing for me, do you remember what that was?
Yeah. Because I can remember it. It's, to me now, even thinking about it, I'll still get the goose pimples, I'll still get scared from that particular moment. And this was as a young kid, 6, 7 years old, getting chased by bullies. And they were only the same year as me, or some of them older. But my school days consisted of just waiting to get out of this school. And it was either get out the back gate, get out the front front gate, climb over 6-foot railings over the sports pitches or the other side and get over 6-foot railings that side. And there was a main road. So I was always trying to find escape routes. And the reason being, there'd be people waiting for me to want to fight me or just to, mess me about and everything and chase me home and call me names. And it was what really scared me more than any missions I've ever been on. I've never been as scared as that because you don't know any difference as a kid. As a young kid, you think you're going to get killed. It just scared me that much. I used to run sometimes past people's houses and bang on the door and ask for help. And, this was at the time when this is growing up in the late 60s and early 70s. And at the time when all the women used to wear the old scarves and everything and that. And I always remember they'd say, go away, leave them alone. And then they'd stop patting me on the head because I had a big afro there. And they'd say, and where are you from? I'm like looking at him, what do you mean? He goes, what country are you from? I didn't know any different. I'm like, I'm from here. It was really weird growing up like that. And yeah, to me though, there was nothing being as scared. I've never been as scared in my life as that young kid. And it's amazing, isn't it? The amount of combat and firefights and the stuff I've done and the near misses I've had. And you're going on missions and there's a good likelihood that you're going to take casualties and so on. But that didn't really bother me as much as it did as a kid growing up. So it just shows you what happens as a kid stays with you. So I'm really into, we've got to push the new generation coming up and get people working together and living together, especially kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a scary thought that's how terrified you was. And I think what's really interesting to me is how you combated it and when it finally stopped, like what you had to do to make it finally stop, I think is a great lesson for people. Do you remember that? Again, I'm going to keep recalling on some of these stories. Yeah.
Well, I always remember it because I would have just carried on running away from it. This was going on for about a year. And it was just so happened that one time I'm running home and my dad's outside because he was a miner and the shifts he was on, he was at home or he wasn't sleeping that night or whatever, that day. So he was outside having a cigarette. And I remember seeing my dad, and it was about 70 meters from home. So I thought, my saviour, and I started shouting my dad. And these kids stopped behind me. And I thought, great, I'm rescued. And he said, what's going on? And I told him this has been going on, this bullying's been going on for about a year, so on. And he goes, well, okay, go fight them. I'm like, you what, Dad? And he goes, go fight them. He goes, you've got to stand up for yourself. And I know, I'm like, no. And he goes, if you don't fight them, you're going to get this, and starts moving his belt off because this was the days whenever you was cheeky to your mom, you get the belt off your dad, So he starts taking his belt off. So I'm like, right, I'll go and face him. I always remember walking towards these kids. These kids were wondering what's going on. And I'm turning around looking at my dad. And I ended up going and facing him. And then he just started playing around with me, pushing me. And before you know it, we started fighting. And that's one thing he said. He goes, leave a mark, do anything, bite them. I'm not promoting the violence, but I remember fighting. And then I did, I bit one of them. And he squealed. And then after that, the bullying sort of stopped because it's not worth fighting him or bullying him because he's going to turn on you. Even though they'd end up getting the upper hand, I would still turn on him. And then he called me and I remember his face when he was talking to me about it. And, he nearly had tears in his eyes. He was just saying, well done. He goes, you've got to always stand up for yourself. He goes, because if you run, you'll always be running. And it's just, he described it like a sandstorm. You aren't going out run it. Eventually, you will just be tired and it's going to overtake you. You just got to turn into that sandstorm, go straight through it, and eventually you'll come out the other side a better person. So that to me was fantastic. And before you know it, I was always having fights then. I didn't want fight, but somebody else wanted to fight you. And you got the name of being the hardest in your year of school. And then you got the name of being the hardest of the school. And then somebody from another school wanted to fight. It was all that. So it ended up making me more resilient and just looking after myself.
How do you describe the economical situation for the estate? Like council estate, I'm getting similar way that I'd say to the Americans is like the projects, but how would you describe that? Like you had a great example of like sharing bathwater and all that, those kind of things. Like what was life like in that era and on the estate? Yeah, life
on the estate, it was quite difficult for everyone. There was poor people, like I said, just like the projects is. But there was, like I said, there was lots and lots of miners on there, and most people were employed, but just poor paid jobs. And so everybody was suffering. Everybody was there was financial problems everybody was suffering. Nobody rich would live in that area. But it's ended up making a good community at the end of the day, because then before you know it, you build up a reputation in your family, and then people see my dad, and he was always suited and booted and a nice guy to everyone. And he had his fights when he first came on the state, and then they ended up looking up to him because, one, he stood up for himself, and he was an hard little man. He'd never back down. And two, they just realised he was a nice guy, and we're all in the same situation here. We're all quite poor. And to say poor, I never had, the bath was just once a week on a Sunday before school. And I never had a clear bath water. It was always like, my dad would have his bath, and my mum, and then me and my brother. So we would be in just dirty water, you know. And my brother was a bit older than me, so he used to sit at the back of me and piss on my back. But he made it warm, you know what I mean? It was that type of life growing up, and just having sugar sandwiches and jam sandwiches. I still love jam now, just the basics, and that's how you had to live.
I've been getting tons of messages asking about my health protocols ever since I did the world's heaviest marathon. The experience took a toll, and getting back to optimal health has been an absolute journey. That's where Marek Health have been absolutely essential. Their approach is beyond quick fixes. It's about long-term health and performance. They work with medical professionals to create personalized, evidence-based plans tailored to your needs, using pharmaceutical-grade treatments and cutting-edge diagnosis. Whether it's TRT, peptides, supplements, or like me, getting full health analysis to get you back on track, Marek Health provides everything that you need. And it's not just for athletes. If you're an entrepreneur or businessman like me, you might want that renewed focus, clarity, and energy. That's when Marek Health can get your brain performing at its peak. From comprehensive blood work to customized health plans, Marek gives you the tools to optimize your life. If you're ready to take control of your health, go to marekhealth.com and use code Mulligan for 10% off. The link's down below. I can't recommend them enough. And if you just wanted to get started, I would go and get your blood work done. Go get assessed, find out where they can help you. Use the link down below for 10% off using code Mulligan. Let's dive back into the video.
Where did the so your dad was a miner. Where did the lean towards the military come from? Like, did you see something as a young kid that inspired you, or a film, or something in particular?
No, I used to see the films, but it wasn't so much that. I remember it was Tripping the Colour one time on a black and white TV, and my dad used to make me stand up whenever he heard the national anthem come on, because it used to come on the TV when the TV used to go off of the night, and if I ever had a late night, he let me stay up late. Whenever the national anthem would come on a British TV, he'd make me stand up. But something like Tripping the Colour, obviously the national anthem was played on that, and we was watching it during the day, and my dad would make me stand up, and he would be proud, because he's a proud Jamaican, but he's proud of being British. And it's just that, watching all the troops marching by and everything, I thought, right, I want some of that. And so I always wanted to be in the army from very, very small. And so all I did then is like, right, how do I get in the army? And we had something called the Army Cadets. I don't know whether it's in America, but it's like all the scouts or something like that. But this was more military side. So you could join from 13 years old and you got your uniform. But I joined at 11 years old. They let me come, and I was marching around in a jean bottoms and a Wrangler jacket. That was my uniform, because you weren't allowed a uniform until you were 13. And then you was a proper cadet. So I got the uniform at 13, and I just loved it. You know, everything about it, because you were firing rifles, you were learning stuff like first aid and navigation. And to me at school, apart from always just fighting and just trying to get away from school, I wasn't academically, whether, you know, geology and geography, that didn't. The only thing I liked about geography was where the battles were, or what wars were on here. I just loved everything to do with military. And so, to me, it made sense, because why am I learning about moon rock and geology and all this science, whereas being in the Army Cadets, I'm learning how to survive off the land. I'm learning navigation. I'm learning first aid. And that, to me, is life skills. I'm thought, wow, this is great. I want to carry on doing this. So I always wanted to go in the military. So as soon as I was 16, I applied for the military, and I got in as a boy soldier 2 weeks after leaving school.
The cadets, like, that's something that I've always heard about, but I never really fully understood what it is. So what's the cadets? Because it still exists to this day.
It's called the Army Cadets. It's a bit like the Scouts in a way, but you've got it's a military setting. You have a military uniform, and then you fire guns and everything, and they teach you stuff. It's It's where kids go from 13 till about 16.
Does it have a direct link afterwards to the military? Like, did you have any sort of follow up after that, or is it like a separate thing, not attached to the military?
No, it's not a direct thing attached to the army, but you get a lot of people, once they've seen what life's like in the army cadets, and then think, well, I want to really go in the military. You know, some kids don't. But to me, it was, well, I always wanted to go in the military as a kid, maybe from about 3 years old. But once I had a taste of the army cadets and it made sense, I'm like, yeah, I want more of this. I want to be in the military.
How did you know where you wanted to go when you got to the military?
Well, I didn't really. I just went in the careers office as soon as I could, and at 16, and he goes, right, you're from this area. And what I didn't want to be, though, is I've a trade, which isn't really a good thing. I want to be a frontline soldier. I said, right, I want to be a soldier. I want to be at the front. I don't want to be a chef or something like this, even though there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to be just a soldier. And he goes, okay, you go in the infantry and you go in your local regiment, which at the time was called the Staffordshire Regiment, because it was like the PALS Regiment. Wherever you was brought up, you'd go to your local unit. That local infantry regiment, we all sort of moved around together.
Once you got in, like, did you'd be 16, 17 at the time. Did the racism stop? Did you find that when you got to the military that it was more welcoming, or did you still face that kind of backlash, or like, you know? Well,
I first started and you do a year's training for a junior soldier, you get a full year's training. And they saw I had potential straight away. So I went to a junior leaders battalion. So, you know, you did train up to be leaders. You did a lot of its leadership as well. And so when I got there, everything was great. I enjoyed it. But there was some bullying. But then I just stuck up for myself, and that soon stopped, you know. And I got to the rank of junior sergeant major, which was good. And then from there, I went to my parent unit, which is your adult unit. And then you're ready to go on operations and be a fully qualified soldier. But at the time, my unit was in Gibraltar, so I went over to Gibraltar. So it was like an holiday. Imagine this as a 16, 17-year-old. You're going to Gibraltar. This is holiday. And I was getting paid to be a soldier in an holiday place. I couldn't believe it. I loved it.
When was the first time you you saw action, or like it got a little bit more real, where you realised the stakes were high? Would that have been Ireland?
Yeah, but we came back from Gibraltar in about 1982, 83, something like that. And then I went in what was known as the Close Observation Platoon. It's like a specialist platoon, and they do their own corridor for it. It's quite an odd course. And you were just lying in bushes, like in old buildings, derelict buildings, for up to 10 days and nights, watching likely terrorist targets and then reporting on them, and then, you know, getting information on them, and if need be, doing a live job on them. So it was quite intense, because you go out just in a small group, 4 of you, and you have a mutually supporting force somewhere else, maybe a few hundred meters away. But a lot of time we weren't mutually supporting, because when the bad weather could come in, we couldn't see each other or locate each other. And fair enough, we had communications back to the headquarters, and a quick reaction force would come out and help us out. But that could take up to 30 minutes or so. So you were based on your own. And this was like right on the border areas. Now, this is 1984, and it was quite a dangerous area, South Armagh, because it was known as bandit country. For instance, the area around Crossmaglen, the small village in Northern Ireland, at the time, more British soldiers had died in this couple of square kilometres around that area than anywhere else since the Second World War. It was just, put it this way, you couldn't go out on vehicles anymore. They stopped the vehicle movement, very rare. You used to have to go out by helicopter. So you was living in like a little compound. Even though you're part of Great Britain, you're living in this compound, and you're flying out to an area, and they're doing these observation posts or patrolling the area. And that means just you're moving around the area, just stopping vehicles and doing checks and so on. But this area, 99% of people hated you there. You could just see the venom in their eyes. They just really didn't like you being there. And I just couldn't understand it. I'm like, wow, they teach you all about Northern Ireland before you go, what to do if you get attacked and all this sort of stuff. But it was just odd being part of Great Britain in Northern Ireland and just having this hatred towards you. And I remember one time they saw me and I was on patrol and he goes, "Soldier boy, what are you doing here?" I says, "I'm just doing my job." And he goes, "No, you in particular." I was, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you were black. What's going on now over in England?" And at the time, there was lots of race riots going on. This is like early 80s. And he goes, "People, they don't want you in this country. They don't like you. Like, they don't like us. We're the Catholics over here. We don't want to be part. Why are you doing this for the British government?" And, it actually got me thinking about it to myself, because I felt safe when I was in the military, because you're a band of brothers, you're all working together. But I used to not feel as safe when I went back home on leave, back to Stoke-on-Trent, because this was a time when the groups like the National Front were all marching about, which is like a extreme far-right movement. What didn't want any blacks in the country, They were, if you was a person like me or an ethnic person, they just didn't want you in the country. And like, send him back. Like, where do I go back? What do you mean? This is my country. I'm a British soldier. I'm fighting for my country, or, I'm willing to die for my country. So I used to hate it when I go back to my hometown and you see these gangs of National Front doing marches with the Union Jack wrapped around them. I'm like, that's my flag. That's my flag. What's on the barracks every morning? I salute that flag. And to me, it was, how dare you have that flag represent you? That doesn't represent you in any way. I mean, me or you in any way. That shouldn't be used to the extreme far right. And now you see what's going on in this day and age. We sort of can go backwards very easy, especially with social media, because people are starting to look online and they can easily get the heads turned instead of just keeping that down the middle. Take people as you find them. There's good and bad in every society.
We spoke earlier because you've got a flag outside your house.
Yeah, because
And we spoke about what that means for you, and I think I can't imagine what it feels like to see a group of people who are spewing hatred, but they're using your flag to do the flag that you've fought for, like you say, wrapped around them. Like, that must have been frustrating to see.
And as a young kid, I felt safe when I was back in the barracks, but then I was going out back up the town in Stoke, and I was fighting with these people. Sometimes there wasn't a march through there, but it was just, there was gangs who just were pro-National Front, and they would just want to fight me, and I would always fight back. So it was, that part was difficult. And then that was my first operational unit, and that was when I had a good friend actually blown up and got killed out there, and then we also had a few other people injured, and then it made you realise, wow, this is happening in our own country, in part of the United Kingdom. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing my bit for the country, and you see some of these guys, they're good in a big gang, pot-bellied blokes who've had a lot of drink, 10 of them or whatever, chasing you around, and they won't stand up for their country and fight for their country. But most of them had never been in the military. They won't go join the military and have a proper fight. It's after the football and just want to fight. And this is the time when, there was Paki bashing going on. That was beating up people of Pakistani heritage or people of race. It was just all that. And it's just a bad vibe. And to me, that's a big no-no. And what really upsets me, still upsets me now, is that the extreme far right use that flag as if to say, right, nobody of colour or extremes should be using this, celebrating this flag. This is our flag. I think, no, because it isn't. To me, I love my flag. I love the Union flag and the St. George flag. I've got them up in my garden. How dare anybody say I shouldn't? I put my life on the line. I've had 24 years service in the military, and I'd do it again at an heartbeat tomorrow. And to me, if you were in this country, if you're a citizen of this country, you should be willing to stand up for your country and fight for your country. So we should have the flags flying everywhere, just like in the United States. And that, to me, is don't let the extreme far right kidnap it. I say extreme far right because not everybody who's going on these marches and that are racist. They aren't at all, most of them. It's just that the small minority are, and it's always the minority what spoil it for everybody else. But then I've got to say something on the other side. You know, I'm not into politics or anything, but I don't like the extreme far left. They're just as bad. And when they start making out that the Union flag represents colonialism or slavery or empire building, stuff like that, what's gone on years ago, you know what I mean? You think, hello, nobody gets an empire by just being nice people. That's what it's about. But we should celebrate our empire. I celebrate everything about it, you know, because then this extreme far left talking about, oh, we should change the flag. What a load of crap. Now, to me, what's that say to a young person from an ethnic background growing up when he's got, God, people are saying this flag, it represents like the Nazis or the extreme far right. And then people on the left say, no, and it also represents slavery and everything. It's not helping them kids, is it? You know, you're British. Get behind that flag. That's our flag. And don't let anybody tell you any otherwise. We should all celebrate it. I'm massive into it, you know, and I'm into the royal family. And it's not just because I've been into the military. I've seen life around the world and everything else. We've got the best country in the world. There's always going to be that minority. There always will be. People won't like you. Maybe not if it's not for your colour, maybe you've got a big nose, or for your football team is supporting, or whatever. You're always going to have haters who will hate you. You know, you can't. But all I can say, you be a good person, stand up for yourself, and you know, just get on with your own life. And then also look out for other people. Don't let anybody get bullied. Always stand up for people.
Yeah, I think and that's where, for me, the situation's sad, I would say, because they're innocent people caught in the middle of like this being politicized, like the flag being politicized, and legal immigration being politicized, and all this kind of stuff. There's people in the middle who want to be a great British citizen, or, you know, want to celebrate the flag, and they're being vilified by it or whatever. It's just sad. Like it's just a crap state of affairs at the moment in the UK for that kind of thing. And you know, we spoke earlier, like they've got everyone squabbling, but the real problem's upstairs. Like the real problem's going on, you know, above us, and we're missing it.
Yeah, I'm not into all these.
Yeah. We don't have to go deep into it.
Yeah,
either,
I know, but it's true. If you keep the working class, the middle class, the lower middle class, or whatever, squabbling against each other. Oh, look at them and look at this, and there's too many people with brown skin in the country or whatever. They are just fighting each other, and the government sort of want that, I believe, because it keeps us people, you know, looking left and right, and they aren't looking up at the elite. They're just sitting back. It isn't bothering them. You know what I mean? Mm. So and let's face it, they could stop immigration. I mean, illegal immigration. You could stop it tomorrow. It could easily be done, and just have legal immigration. And because as far as I'm concerned, immigration should be integration. If you come to somebody's country, when in Rome, you take up that culture as much as you can. That doesn't mean you lose your own culture. You can bring some of your own culture in, and that's how we've adapted. And that's Great Britain for us. You know, look all the curry houses in the place and so on. But it should be integration. Should be immigration. Should be integration, and you just get on with it and bring some of your own culture, but celebrate the British culture first. And that doesn't mean you've got to go down the pub and all the rest of it and whatever, how some people see the British culture, but we've got a great culture. Be proud of your country and the country what you're living in. And if need be, you should be willing to defend that country.
Was your dad's generation briefed on when they came here? Because you've got that awesome picture of your dad who is down at the pub with he's got like a big lager in his hand or whatever it is. Like, were they briefed on like integrating, or did that exist before? Like, is that something that he had? You say, was he from Jamaica?
Yeah, my dad was from Jamaica, really, you know, really, really black. My mom was from Stoke-on-Trent, and she was a white woman. They met very early. And put it this way, my mother's parents, well, her mom at the time, my dad was dead, because she was going out with a black man. They kicked her out of the house. So my mom and dad just had to get on and make do with it. And they were just staying in bed sits, and that's how I grew up for the first part of my life. But that just showed you that they loved each other, and they carried on. And, you know, my mom, she got an awful lot of abuse sometimes when I was going to school from adults, calling the the end lover and stuff like that, you know. So I remember as a kid thinking, why are they screaming at you? And then my dad, whenever he's picking me up from school, he would get a lot of abuse, and sometimes from adults, and spat at and stuff like that. And he just held my hand, you know what I mean? He'd stand and face an adult, but not so much with me. He'd just like carry on. But I did see my dad fight when I was down the pub one time, and it scared the living daylights out of me. I must have only been about 5, and he stood up for this woman who was outside, and they were having an argument, and my dad just went in there and just said, what's going on, and try and break it up. And then somebody started abusing him, and then I just saw what my dad can go. He's like a Tasmanian devil. I'm like, God almighty. Oh, no, God. But it scared me, you know, watching all the fighting going on. And then he just come back after, just tucked in his shirt into his suit and hold my hand and, right, let's go, get your crisps and pop. It was like as if nothing happened. It's just crazy. And that today stays with me forever. But he was just looking after somebody who was getting bullied or whatever, you know? So he would always stand up for people. He's not one of these people who just turn his back. He'd stand up for what's right. So I believe in that as well. But as I said, we settled in over the years, made great friends, and before you know it, everybody not just liked us on the estate, they loved my dad. He got a great reputation, and through the years, things got better. And it was obviously because it was just back in that day, it was a different era altogether. But yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, like the resilience that you guys show us, you know, and your dad and your family. And like, again, like if people want to hear more about like that situation, like there's tons of that in the book. So then, you know, once you get to Ireland and you start facing these real life situations, you know, and like, you know, you're losing friends. How do you deal with the fear? Like did training just kick in? Like, was there some kind of like technique that you were using to like, you know, you didn't know what was around any corner at any given time?
No, you weren't so much scared. You know, you was a bit, I was going to say apprehensive, and you know, a bit, well, I just hope this isn't going to be me, because there's bombs going off and all the rest of it, and it's just like you're facing an enemy within the terrorists. When there was instances what had happened, where, you know, you've known people who've been shot but survived, and yeah, it was quite worrying. But being at such a young age, at the end of the day, it just again makes you more resilient. And I ended up doing a couple of tours of Ireland, in fact 3 in total before I went to the SAS. But prior to that, though, once I'd done my second tour of Ireland, which was in 1989, and in 1990 we was over Germany, and the first Gulf War come about. So I was a corporal in charge of altogether something like 11 of us, including myself, in an armoured fighting vehicle. So you got a lot of responsibility. And that was the time I saw real combat.
As many of you know, we are independent creators and filmmakers, but there is a massive attack on us right now. Traditional media over the last few years has started to slowly die. They are no longer the independent voice that you first thought they were. That's why we've created Mulligan Brothers Patreon. We've built something special for our most dedicated supporters, and I want to break it down for you real quick. The supporter tier gets you ad-free early access to both video and audio versions of Mulligan Brothers interviews 24 hours before it goes public. The executive tier gets you everything that a supporter tier gets, plus more. Exclusive interviews and behind the scenes content, walk and talks, daily routines, unreleased interviews, the stuff that you don't see anywhere else. And finally, the executive producer tier. Everything from the supporter tier and the executive tier, plus exclusive perks. Access to our treatment packages. Be the first to see which guests are coming up and get insight into the topics we'll be discussing before anyone else. And you'll even get an executive producer credit on every single documentary that we make. So if you've ever wanted to support the Mulligan Brothers mission of inspiring change so we can go around the world and get these stories that nobody else will, this is exactly how you do it. Go to patreon.com/Mulligan Brothers, or click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Join the community and help us inspire change. Let's dive back into the video. I mean, again, like, was there an acceptance of, did you have to accept that might be your fate? Like, if I want to fight for my country, like, there's a good chance that I could die. Like, did you accept death? Or, like, cause when you say there wasn't any fear, is that just the way you're wired? Or is that every single person who's serving has that, you know, there was no fear of death?
I wouldn't say, when I say no fear, it was just really apprehensive, but especially when you got to the Gulf War, that was a full-on war. It was tanks and it's a full-on armoured infantry war. And we did the first armoured infantry attack since the Second World War, while A Company at the Staffords did. And then I was in B Company, and then we did Albert as well. Sorry, C Company I was in, and we did Albert. So you got into proper action and you saw what it was like for real. And to me though, I wasn't so much worried or scared because I was in charge of guys. And you felt like you was a lot older than what you were. What was I? I was about 25 and then 26 by the time it was over. And you've got guys who were in your vehicle and you were in charge of, and they were 18, 19, most of them, very young lads. And they looked up to you being the corporal, and you think to yourself, right, these are my lads. I've got to protect them. I've got, I've been on my courses. I need to make sure that they're doing the right things and they're moving when they come under fire, and they know when to give covering fire and so on. You need to know the big picture, within our group, what's going on. And they looked up to you as for guidance and that. So, yeah, to me, it was one of the proudest moments in my life, because watching these lads come out the back of a vehicle with me and start going into a firefight. And there's nothing worse when you know your vehicle's taking incoming rounds and you're in a nice protective metal pod, and then you have to get out that vehicle and fight. That's quite scary. And if you think about it, these young lads, they are doing it. They aren't getting paid much or anything, and they're doing it for the country. They're willing to give their lives. So it was an honour to actually be in charge of them and that. So to me, it still stays with me, even though I've done a lot more dangerous missions and a lot more really high up strategic stuff, you know what I mean? And being involved in some really bad situations in combat and that. But this will always stay with me, because it was just like, wow, look at these lads following me, and we're doing it. So it was like a little band of brothers, and I loved every minute about it. Really did.
As a leader, like how, if you're looking at your guys and you can sense fear on these guys, as a leader, how do you instill confidence and bravery on them?
Right, you can sense fear because you're all in the back of a vehicle and the vehicle stunk, and it doesn't just smell of the normal sweat. It's a bit different when I think the pauses were breathing out like fear, you know what I mean? And you can see it in people's faces and eyes, especially when there's bombardments going off and your vehicle is actually shaking because of the thunder of the bombardments, and you're like, God almighty, last thing you want to do is say get out there. But how I did is I was just shouting up to him and just like, believe it or not, joking, having a sense of humour, saying, right, we'll soon be home, getting a nice beer down us in a few months, lads, or in a few weeks, and just think of that and so on, and just try and believe it or not, have a laugh about it, because it's like moving on to when I'm going to talk about the SAS. David Sterling's ethos, you've got to have a sense of humour. No matter what situation you're in, you've got to have a sense of humour. And just, even though sometimes they couldn't hear us when I'm shouting at them in the back of this vehicle, but just having that smile towards them, like, and giving the thumbs up, you're going to be all right. Just stick with what we've been told. We've been drilled over and over and over again. We've done the practicing for it. We're the British military. We're the best in the world, So you're like, nobody's going to beat us. So it's that. I get the goose pimples now. It's just having that mentality. Come on, lads. And yeah, we all got through it. Unfortunately, we did have people killed on the attacks, and I saw that happen. And that was, when you see it happen in front of you, that was like the first proper combat I'd been in. Yeah. You don't think about it at the time. It's just that afterwards, and you think, right, such young guys and getting shot or getting blown up and RPGs in them and that. So, yeah. However, again, it just makes you more resilient, and I just wanted then to carry on my military career once we come back from the Gulf War.
What was your adjustment like from seeing proper combat, like when you got back to the UK and you was, back home and stuff? Did you struggle at all, or was you straight back into it?
We sort of went straight back into it. We went back to Germany first of all, and because we all had the vehicles coming back 6 weeks later. We had some leave, but believe it or not, once we finished, we actually stopped on the Basra Road, and this was like a 6-lane highway. This was in the first Iraq War, and it'd been bombarded, and all these vehicles with Iraqis, what were looting, Kuwait, they used civilian vehicles, some of them did, they had military vehicles as well, they were all trying to bomb base back up to Baghdad. And obviously the RAF and the American Air Force had a field day just going up and down, blasting all the hell out of them. And by the time we got there was only bits of fighting going on, and that was it. But it was still burning, it was carnage. So we just stayed, and we were told, stop now. What was happening? And basically the war had stopped, and we were told not to move from this area. But you were just on this area, and it was just like one of these horror scenes, because all these cars have been burnt out, while most of them have had. Some of them haven't been burnt out. So I remember getting on a bus full of people who'd all been shot up, dead, and dead Iraqi soldiers, and just looking at them like waxworks, and touching the bodies and getting stuff off, and thinking, wow, this is just unreal. It looked like they were pretending to be dead, some of them, because they had that, the eyes open until you got to them, and then you see the guts out or whatever. But it was just a really weird situation. We were static in this area for a fair few days. So it was, yeah. And it didn't smell very nice and all the rest of it. But that was like full on war.
Oh, so you was on that highway for a couple of days or so? No?
Yeah, for a few days and nights. And you saw some really weird things. I always remember this dog, and he's just carrying an arm in its mouth. But rigor mortis hadn't set in, the hand was still moving. So it was as if it was waving to you. Like, God, look at that. And it's just quite a surreal environment to be in, and obviously a smelly environment, and just the smell of death and everything around you. Because it took about 3-4 days before the engineers come up and then started moving all the vehicles and moving all the bodies. So we was told just stay exactly where we were amongst all this crap. But yeah, it was a bit weird.
Was it an easy adjustment to seeing like that much death around you? Like, had you seen enough prior to that to sort of understand that it was?
No, I'd seen nowhere near enough. I've been to Ireland, just little bits and bobs that went on there, but I hadn't seen that sort of death. No, you know what I mean? That was my first dead body, what I actually saw.
And so when you were on that bus, was that strange for you at all? Like, did it leave you with anything, or did you adjust well to seeing all of that?
It's only like years and years later when you think back about it, you start, whoa, you have the odd nightmare. But that came back years later. But it's just like so weird. I'm like, God, look at this. But what I didn't like, also some civilians were killed on it as well, who were mixed up within the escape. So you'd see some like women and children. That was the worst part. Because to me, enemy combatants, they've got that uniform on. They're fighting for their countries. They're legitimate enemy, legitimate targets. And same terrorists, same insurgents, war criminals. They're scum. People who wear a uniform, they're fellow enemy combatants. At least they have the respect to wear a uniform. They aren't like a terrorist who just fires and then just runs off and hide. So it's how can I say? It didn't bother me, but it did later on. Not really bad. You just have the odd nightmares. Because since then, I saw lots worse and lots of worse type of environments and seeing combat, but up close. Because the difference is when you're further away, or you're in a vehicle firing, or you're just getting out the vehicle and firing, if you shoot somebody from far distance, or even, especially at night time, you've got a scope on them, you just see a target go down. And it can be like a computer game, you don't see the aftermath. But then staying with the aftermath, or when you've been in a situation where, and I have myself, is where it literally is close combat, where you've actually gone through all your senses, you've seen the life go out of the person. I've had to use my weapon like a modern day club because I was trying to capture somebody, before having to kill him. So you saw the life go out of him. You heard his last gargle, You smelt the blood, the sweat, and the carbine of release of when I fired my weapon. So you smelt the guy, you heard the guy, you saw the guy, but just as bad yet, I felt the guy because I was grappling and as I said, using my weapon as a club because it was that close and personal. Only thing I didn't do was taste the guy, but that sort of sense, you can't get any more close up than that. And yeah, so I must admit, I carried on doing my career, but once I got out, it was years later that you start getting these sort of flashbacks and everything was going on. It's like, whoa, or night sweats, or just nightmares. But a lot of it is my wife. She gets the worst of it because I'm just kicking and basically kicking her out of bed sometimes. And a lot of times I can't remember them because I have to wake up because my missus has just punched me. I'm like, what was that for? But, that's part of the job. It's now and again. And let's face it, you've got people who see death all the time, firefighters and police, going out to car crashes all the time. And you see kids mangled up in a road traffic accident, and nurses, they've got it as well. So it's just part of life.
You think some people are just more adjusted to seeing that kind of thing versus other people?
Yeah, you can sort of get used to seeing death if you've seen death a lot, or I wouldn't say 100% get used to it. You just get on with it. It's part of your job. And like I said, the nurses do it. Lots of people do dangerous jobs or not nice jobs, but somebody's got to do that job. But I love my job when I was in there doing it.
Where did the ambition come from for getting into the SAS? Because obviously that's not everyone's goal, but if you're in the military, that's the pinnacle is like SAS. Like people look at that with like a lot of ambition and desire. Like how come you'd set your goals on that?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, I didn't know much about the SAS at all. Where this was in the early 80s when I first wanted to go for it. And what really made me go for it, the Iranian embassy had happened. I'd heard about that. And the SAS then sort of got highlighted, didn't they? But again, I wasn't going to go for it. And then I remember seeing some SAS guys on a course. I'm like, wow. And they just seemed different. And then we had this officer come to us, and he was from the SAS. Even though he was within the Staffordshire Regiment, he went to the SAS for 2 years and came back. And he was just something different than the normal officers who were in charge. You usually have a major, he's in charge, and he'll just watch you. He'll come in with his Labrador and watch us go over the assault course, getting all muddy, crawling about and firing. And this guy, he would do it with you. And he'd lead from the front and he would be involved. He wasn't bothered about the room inspections and how clean your room was and whether you were good at drill and marching, whereas a lot of majors and people like that it was more for camp duty, so their troops looked really good in the camp. He wasn't too fussed about that. He was more bothered about how you was on the ground when you was a soldier, when you were doing your job. And if you was sometimes could be a bit of a rag arse, not that good in the barracks, but outside when you were doing it on the ground or practicing doing it or on training exercises, and if you were good then, he liked you. And it was him who actually, what I looked up to so much. So I was going to put in for the SAS, and he'd left by this time. He'd done his time and he'd gone somewhere else. And so we had this new major, and I was putting in for the SAS, and I remember some guy coming back from the SAS course telling me I couldn't go for it. And I goes, why is that? And he goes, because you're black. I goes, what's that got to do with it? He goes, oh yeah, they're all undercover in Ireland. They have to sit in the pubs and get information. I thought, okay, yeah, I would have stuck out in Ireland, especially back then. There wasn't many black people living in Ireland. So I thought, no, I can't go for it. So I never did for about 5 years later. And it was only just before the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, that this major came back, this SAS guy, but he wasn't with my company. He went to a different company. And he saw me and he goes, I thought you'd go for the SAS by now. I said I would, and I told him the reason. He goes, well, why aren't you trying to put in for it? I goes, well, I can't, because of being black. And he just started laughing at me. And I told him what somebody told me. He goes, obviously you couldn't sit in a pub in Northern Ireland. You haven't got ginger hair and freckles, for instance. You aren't going to blend in. That's not offending anybody with ginger hair and freckles. But you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, he goes, you won't be able to do that, but you could be on the reactive side part of it, and there's lots of other places. Go for it. So as I said, that's when I put in the paperwork. I was all getting ready to go for it, and then the first Gulf War come up. So I withdrew my papers because I thought I can't go on this course now and leave my blokes. I'll do it afterwards. But then when I came back afterwards, we had another. They sent me straight on my science course, and I thought, yeah, that'll be good. That'll get me a bit more experience for when I go to the SAS. So then I put on the paperwork again, and then we got another emergency tour to go Ireland. This time I'm a sergeant in charge of 30 guys with a young lieutenant. So it looks like I'm war dodging. Why am I going try the SAS course when all my group's going to Ireland? So I thought, right, I'll go to Ireland. So by the time I could put in the paperwork, it was like end of 93, beginning of 94, and that's when I went for it. But I didn't know anything about it. I just went in there blind because my unit, I was the second ever guy from my unit get in the SAS. That's a normal rank. Some guy got in the 70s and I'd never heard about it. I never knew him. And this officer got in, but I was the first normal rank. So that was a total of 3 guys. But as I say, I was the second just normal soldier get in. Or go for it, not go for it, get in. Many people went for it, but they come back with horror stories. So I just went in blind. So yeah, and I got in.
What did you know about like the fitness tests, all this kind of stuff? Did you know anything to like look for? Like, did you know what you was getting into? Like, did you start training for it, working out for it, or? Yeah,
I knew you have to be extremely fit, and I knew you're going to have to carry a lot of weight over the mountains, and I knew it was down Brecon somewhere. I didn't know the routes or anything. I had no idea. So I started training for it, but then we were getting ready for another tour duty of Ireland in the coming months. So they made me go on Northern Ireland duty again beforehand. So all my training was just in my own time and over Christmas. But I'd always kept myself fit. But I did the wrong type of fitness. I was based in Chester, in like a town in UK, a city in UK. And I was putting a pack on weighing about 100 odd pounds, and I was just running about 15 miles on concrete all around the place. And all I was doing was smashing my knees. It's a wonder I was still okay by the time I got on selection. It was the wrong type of training to do for the beginning, you know what I mean? But that's what I was doing, is because I had no idea. But I just went there with an open mind and basically did everything they told me and just pushed myself every single day. So if you just give in 100%, there's only so much more not much more you can do. You know, if you push yourself, and that course is designed to push everybody to the physical breaking point. It's designed that way. It doesn't matter how strong and big you are, how small you are. Everybody will go through the pain and, the get little niggly injuries and getting the sores and everything. But it's totally left up to you. There's nobody praising you, but then there's nobody shouting at you. It's all self-motivation, and that's what's wrong in this day and age. You've got to have that self-discipline. You've got to want it. You've got to do it. It takes self-discipline to get up in the morning and go training when it's cold and wet. But if you do it, before you know it, it becomes a routine and an habit, and that builds consistency, and that builds growth and strength. And that would be the same even in the business. You get into work early, just don't stand on these coffee breaks a bit longer and just talking about, get there early, get your job done, do the best, and then try to do a bit more. Be consistent to doing that. Before you know it, the company will grow, and then you'll get seen and you'll get promoted, and just whatever you're going to do, just do the best. And that's why I love the SAS ethos.
Just a quick 10-second interruption from the video. If you want early 24-hour access to these videos, they're uploaded every Friday on Spotify, linked down below. Let's dive back into the episode. How would you describe the physical tasks you have to do? Like, what is it different now today than it was back then? Like, what's?
No, they've tried to keep it as much as, believe it or not, from when the SAS was originally formed, where you have to do a really hard hills physical side of it, and it moves on to different phases, and it's arguably the most toughest course, military toughest course in the world. And I'd say so because I know other people from other countries have tried it exactly the same what we do and not got there. Maybe because it's just that different mentality, I know the Americans do something similar as well. It's like the equivalent to their Delta Force. And we have like the SAS course. It's like, say, how they have their Delta course, which is they've only got a small unit of Tier 1 soldiers like in Delta, and there's SEALs, and we have Tier 1 soldiers in the SAS and the SBS. That's a special boat squadron. And so forget to that small group of people, and there is only a very few of us. It takes a lot of effort, and it's going to take a lot of effort. So you push to your physical limits, and you're nearly on breaking point. But then after that, they don't really even know your name. You do a month of, or 3 weeks to a month of going over the hills and pushing yourself, carrying the weights going up. You don't know how far you got to go and all the rest of it, and when it's going to stop. So that is extremely hard, believe you me. But if you think about it, you could get somebody who's a civilian, complete civilian, who's extremely fit, extremely dedicated and determined. He can map read. They might be able to pass that part. So they don't even know your name, you're just a number. It's afterwards then when you start the jungle phase, because then that's in some points it's just as hard, because you get to the jungle, and I used to think the jungle was going to be nice and flat and just like loads of trees. It's the mountains, it's like the Brecon Beacons, but with trees. You're working and tabbing there all day, and everything in the jungle just wants to bite you, stab you, sting you, and you have so many weeks in the jungle, but you watch continuously. You know, you have an instructor for about 4 of you, so you're continuously being watched, and it's just such an odd environment working. But to me, it's the best environment, because once you set up and you've got that hammock set up, and you've got your shelter set up, and you're listening to nature, all the animals around you, and it's like, God, you've worked hard that day, and just getting that few hours sleep, it's brilliant. You're stinking, and everybody's got beards and everything, because you're not allowed shave, because if you cut yourself in the jungle, because of the climate, the humidity, you know, it'll take a long time to heal, or it won't heal. So yeah, but that's where they're testing and see if you're a soldier. But what they do, they teach you everything first. They just give you, I'd never been in the jungle before. So I just took on board exactly what they told me and just cracked on with it. And yeah, by the time we finished the jungle, there was only not very, very few of us left. And then to me, I think I went on to the hardest part, which was the resistance to interrogation, where this is where you push to you. It's all right being pushed to your physical limits, but it's when you get pushed to your mental limits, they try to break your mind, and that is so difficult, going without food for so many days and nights, you know, and you're being hunted and being run down, and you're still going over the mountains, and you've got no equipment with you, and then if you get caught, you get beasted, and then you're back out there again, and so by the time they capture you after so many days and nights, a fair few, and you've had no food in you or anything, you're completely drained and worn out. And then to go into interrogation for a long, long time, and you've got white noise, and you've got blindfolds on, you've got remember cover stories or remember what they've told you and so on. It's really difficult, because you're completely knackered, and you've got professional interrogators interrogating you. So I remember just hallucinating. Everybody starts hallucinating, and then you're trying to remember what you've got to do, and your body's in pain and run down. Do that for a long time. It really is. It's hard to keep a point to doing exactly what they tell you. For instance, I remember on my course, this officer got through to the end, and he was really intelligent. I thought, he isn't going to fail this part, he'll be all right. And I couldn't believe when he failed, he just started signing paperwork and just talking away, and he didn't even know he did it. But it was all filmed, so there's no lie. You know, everything. It's really weird, because what they do, you've got a few hundred people who start this course, and by the end of it, from all different parts of the military, and including the Navy and Air Force, everybody can actually go on this course. They all jumbled up, and the ones what get through, you look, and you're just like, wow, there's only a few get through, and the numbers, they always stay the same. If 100 could get through, they'd pass 100. If nobody gets through, they'd pass nobody. But it's amazing how the numbers always just stay roughly about the same, and there's only very few of you, and you look at each other and you think, yeah, they've got the odd giant there, but everybody's just a normal bloke. You know, just nothing. They don't look anything special, and I'm not special. People call it the Special Air Service, and yeah, it is the elite, and I'm proud to have been there. I say we are the best of the best, 100%. You know. But to me, people who are special are the people who looked after my dad when he was dying of cancer. People looked after my mom when she had dementia and looked after her. They are special. That's a special job. To me, I was just doing a job I love and enjoyed. And it's dangerous, don't get me wrong. Went through a lot. But I take my hat off to people like that. They should be special. call special.
I love that. That's a really nice way of thinking, and I think that's so true. There's so many amazing people out there that don't get the recognition. Not that you guys, the stuff that you do is incredible as well. The interrogation part of it, no one really speaks about that. Actually, it's not really something I've heard of. Like what kind of mental games they play with you at the end?
They play the old good cop, bad cop. That's a simple one, and so on. And they will just. I remember this guy. He was talking to me, and he had like a Canadian accent. I don't know if he's from Canada. He's a professional interrogator, but he starts talking to me. Then he went down in this drool, really slow talk, and he was putting me to sleep. I'm like, oh. And he said, right, you've told me this, you've told me that. And I'd wake up and I think, have I? I didn't realise, have I said something? And then he'd send me asleep again by talking really slow and down, and I'd fall asleep again. Then he'd say, right, you've said this. You said you was doing that. I'm like, have I? And the shock, it was just that. And then I nearly, you can nearly slip up in them situations because you're just so confused and so tired in your mind. Because I had this white light going off outside my blindfold. It was like a strobe light. I don't know what it was, but it was just blinding me all the time. And then the noise afterwards, I'm just like still hearing those noises and confusion, and my head's just it's all over the place. So you don't know what you say. It was really weird, really confusing. Like I remember just looking, like I'm looking at you now, looking at this interrogator, and as I'm looking at him, his head just turned to Mickey Mouse. I'm like, the fuck? I'm talking to Mickey Mouse here. I'm talking to a big mouse, for fuck's sake. But that's how your mind goes. Yeah. And then so to be able then keep to the what you've been told, it's extremely difficult. It really is. And I know people who still, I know a friend of mine who now, when he gets drunk, it's very rarely, but not rarely he gets drunk, but on the rare occasion he'll get drunk, but rarely he will just then, at night, get out of bed, get in a stress position against the wall, lean up against the wall, and then start pissing on the floor. So he's ruined that many carpets. So his wife now makes him sleep in another room when he's going out, have a good drink with the lads, because she just doesn't want to get pissed on. And then, because just in case he does that. And obviously, where's that come from? That's come from something. We just laugh about it. But, so I do believe that I can stay with you, because it can. But yeah, it's amazing what you can do, what the human body, what your physical can do if you really want to do something. And also what your mind can do. You can go much further than what you think you can do. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do anything. And I say that I do some chats now, and I say to people, no matter where you're from, nobody's better than you. Don't tell them that you can't do it, and use that as ammunition, that negative vibe they're giving to you. Say, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I had this many times, people saying, I'm not going to achieve anything in life, I'm never going to move off a council estate. Not as if there's anything wrong with a council estate, but I'll never ever own my own home, I'm never going to be a good worker, I'm never going to hold down a job. I was having teachers tell me this as a kid, so that doesn't make you right. I'm like, no, I prove all these wrong. So when it was getting hard, I'd have people's mind in my head. I'm thinking, right, think of this teacher. And I remember the teachers. I won't give them, well, they'd be dead by now, but, I think of them. I think, I'll show you get. And I had other people. I use that negativity as positivity. I know it's an old cliche, but I did, and that drove me on. I'm like, nobody's better than me. I'm proving this. So I went on that course, and I wanted to give up. They'd have to drag me off there. Serious, I did. You've got to be willing to die on it, I think. And I would have done. I was just that determined. I wouldn't let anybody say they're better than me. And I've always been competitive, but I'm like, right, no, you can. And I won't say anybody can do it. Anybody can do really what you want. You don't have to come from a rich background or have a privileged life or anything like this, you know what I mean? But what it does take is a lot of hard work. No matter what you want to do in life, you've got to work for it. Sometimes people think, right, it's an easy, go for the easy way out. No, whatever you want to do, you can really do. But what it means is you've either got practice harder than anybody else, or train harder than anybody else. You've got practice hard, train hard, study harder. You've got to put in the effort, first of all. And whatever job you want, I'm not just saying the military, you can go for really what you want. It might mean getting in that library and studying harder than anybody else and getting yourself back on track. You might be a few years later than, you might have not got no qualifications, but I know people who've done all this. And you can do it. So wherever you are, whoever you are, just go for the best. And what could happen? You could fail. There's nothing wrong with failure. You learn by failure. Failure, to me, it's got to happen. Everybody fails in life. And you look at the best, the most famous people, you know, I think Walt Disney and there's a few others who made massive businesses or they've achieved great things. A lot of them have failed many, many times. They've had knockbacks. And it's the people who are resilient, who after a knockback, what's better than a knockback? Or what's better than a setback? A comeback, isn't it? So if you can keep on driving forward and keep on saying, right, I can do this, you will do it. Even if it's taking another attempt. And that's why, even forgetting the SAS, if people get injured or they might fail and say, right, you just aren't good enough, then come back, get a bit more training and give it a go again. And then you have to do the course again. And people have got in, many have got in on a second attempt. But what they will never have is a volunteer withdrawal. If you say, right, I've had enough, I'm going. And most people take themselves off selection. This is what a lot of people don't know about. They don't get failed just because they ain't good enough or they get injured. Yeah, there's a few injuries and some people do get told they need more experience. The vast majority of people, I'd say 90%, do what's known as VW, which is volunteer withdrawal. At any time on that course, you can just say, right, I've had enough. Not even get out of your bed in the jungle or your hammock, you can just lie there and think, nah, I've had enough. When the helicopter comes in for the next resupply, I'm going to get on that helicopter and have a few days on the beach, then go back to my unit. There's no shame in it because then you go back to your unit, everybody will give you respect because you've gone for the toughest course in the world. You know what I mean? But what you have done, you volunteered withdrawal. You will never be allowed back on that course because you can't just say, right, I've had enough. When you're behind enemy lines or you're on an operation or you're in combat, you can't just say, right, I don't want any of this now. You know what I mean? You can't be an empty suitcase when you're in a 4-man patrol. You can't carry anybody. Everybody's got put in 110%. They've got, you know, you've got all be part of that cog and work together. We might not be the best of friends. There's some people in the SAS I don't get on with you, and that's just human nature. But whenever we was on a mission, we was all 100% behind each other, and it's that type of life. You don't have to be the best mates socializing, even though a lot of them are, and the best mates what we've still got now are ex-SAS guys, but that's just how life was.
Just a quick interruption from the video. I want to talk about our paid partnership with BetterHelp. As you guys are aware, I've always been super open about my mental health, anxiety, depression. For a long time, the way I would deal with that is by burying those emotions, working really hard, running hundreds of miles, and burying those feelings deep down inside. That's why over the last 2 years, I have stuck to online therapy, weekly online therapy, and it's been absolutely incredible. It was a massive weight off my shoulders. I know I'm not the only person who feels like this, but sometimes it can feel like you are, and you can feel super alone in that anxiety, that depression. And then we have to add the mix of social media in there. For somebody like myself, I'm on social media all the time for work, but so many other people look on there and see these highlight reels of people's lives that's just not true reality. All of these things can be super overwhelming. For a lot of people, we decide to keep it to ourselves. We think we can battle through, we can push through. That's why I turned to online therapy, and you can too with BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a credentialed therapist who can help navigate whatever you're going through. It's an online platform, so you can do your sessions from wherever feels comfortable. And if the first therapist isn't a right fit, you can switch at no extra cost. Most people using BetterHelp are looking for support with anxiety, and 69% report improvement after just 6 weeks. Therapy helped me shift my perspective, process things in a way I couldn't do alone, and actually start feeling lighter. If you've been thinking about therapy, this might be the right sign to give it a go. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Mulligan Brothers for 10% off your first month of therapy. Let BetterHelp rule your anxiety, so anxiety doesn't rule you. Let's get back to the video. You talk about VWing, and I think most people who try and achieve something, a large portion of them, it's not because they failed or something happened externally, it's because they VW'd. They just decided, like, I'm not going to stick with it. And I think the secret to success, when you ask anybody who's extremely successful, is they had a goal and they just committed wholeheartedly. There was no quitting them. They're just going to continue to do it no matter what. whenever there's failures or injuries or whatever it is, they're going to continue to push on. So I think that mentality can be applied to life. Like just don't VW, just keep going, like no matter what.
Keep going. Like, life should be there for live and enjoy. But it's also hard. You know, everybody's going to go through at some point in life where they're going to face financial problems. I've gone from having a bit of money to completely debt, 50 grand in debt, and nothing serious. So financial problems, emotional problems, you know, divorce, not having a break up from a girlfriend, or other emotional problems, psychological problems, your mind can start going, physical problems, get injured, or people in your family get medical problems and so on. Everybody's going to face all these physical problems, financial problems, economic problems, emotional problems. It's all just part of life. It's a near-all of life. You're just going to get it. And you've got to just be resilient and say, right, this is just a passage of time. I'm going to build up from this. I'm going to carry on. And you've got to carry on. What else do you do? You know what I mean? And to me, it's having that mentality that there is going to be problems. Everybody's going to face grief at some time or another. And it's very difficult. You know, it tests people in different ways, but it's all part of us. And you've got to build each other up. Like loads of times, I had lots of friends, especially when I was in the SAS, who died in, you know, terrible ways and so on. But then at the end of the day, it was always a celebration of whenever the funeral was on, because that guy's doing something he loved. And he wouldn't want to see people crying, or whenever you buried anybody, a member of the family, a grandma or granddad. They don't want to see you just go down and down and down and down. They want you to celebrate their life and then build up from it. They would want to see you do better and carry on. And if there is an heaven, you know, they'd be looking up there, down there, and like saying, right, go for it, nice one, keep on, you know, so we celebrate my life and let's move on. But in a way, I used to always have that attitude as well. But it was, in a way, I sort of went through a stage where I lost a bit of, not empathy, and compassion, and maybe because, it was being in the military, you got so used to burying people or friends. I'd seen friends killed and injured and knowing about such and whatever has happened, that you don't become immune to it, but it happens. So when my dad passed away, he was dying of cancer for a few years, and, you know, he was really suffering. But I remember saying to my mom, right, all my dad's stuff now, just move out. I moved it out for her and put it in the shed and sort of just decleanse everything, because that's sort of what you do in the military. You know, we sell the guy's gear, whatever he had, we sell all his uniform, and people give money towards his family. You know, it's like a big raffle, and not a raffle, they just sell all the equipment to raise money, and that goes to the family. So to me, it was like, yeah, just move everything out and not forget about him, but just you now build up and start building your life. And it was only like a few years later, then she told me, and she had a real go at me, and I 100% realised why. She goes, that was terrible what you did to me. And I said, what? You just moved everything, his walking stick, anything to do with him, you put out the way and just sort of said, carry on. Because that's what you had to do when you was in the military. You had to carry on. You can't, you know, you had a mate killed, right, carry on, I'm still there. And I did that with that. And I sat back and thought, God, why, you know, and it made me really sit back there and think, what did I do? But to me, I think that was part of that military mindset. Your mates died, okay, we have the funeral, have a good drink for him, now crack on. And that's what I sort of did with my dad. And I remember my mum, as I say, had to go at me and looking at, I can 100% see why, but at the time, because I was still in the SAS, in the military, I didn't realise I was doing anything wrong, you know? So it's crazy how you had that type of attitude. Wow. And I love my dad to bits. He's the best thing, you know, it's terrible, but yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine it dropping off you quickly either. Like, if you've been used to that way of living for so many years and like so goal focused, so mission driven, that you just move from point to point to point. I think that's why so many people love the idea of a military mindset. Like, if they want to be successful in business or entrepreneurship or any walk of life, like a lot of people try and adopt like a military mindset to achieve those things. I think like real true success is found when you're able to adopt those things, but also switch it off from time to time to be able to have family, friends, and not impact that way. And it's difficult. I don't really know. I don't think I've ever bumped into anybody who's managed to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things you kind of have to go through and process and come through the other side. There was an interesting point you said about the human body, and we spoke about it earlier as well. But the human body is more capable than people realize, and I wish I could make people truly understand what that means, because I think some people, maybe they'll run 10 miles, and you'll ask them, how much further could you have gone? I could have done a couple more miles, could have done 2 or 3 more miles. In my head, sometimes a lot of people might be running 10, 15 miles thinking that they're at their limit. And I think they've probably got another 90 miles, another 200 miles in them. Like they could really push themselves to the extreme. Not to say everyone should do that and destroy their body in that way, but the human body is so capable. It's just usually our mind that limits us.
Oh, yeah.
And have you had situations where you've started to realize that, like maybe you've been on a mission or you've been on a run or something, and you've thought you're at your limit, but you've just been able to go for an extra mile or extra day or something like that?
Yeah. Well, your mind goes before your body, you know what I mean? If you fit and your body's still going, it's in the mind. You can still do it. You think you're putting 100%, you can't do any more. You can keep on trudging on. And it's like, I've seen it like when I was on the selection course. You think you've come to the end, and they tell you you're coming to the end, and you jump on a vehicle and suddenly stop. No, we're going to go all night, and then all next day. And then you see people just say, oh, I've had enough, because they've seen that end. And then when it's taken away from them, you've got to carry on, you've got to keep going. They think they can't, but they can, 100%. You can, like I agree with you, you can push your body more than what you think. And it's also your mind. You can, but it's in there, just be determined to do it. Say, right, set yourself the goal. I'm going to get up and train tomorrow and do it. Don't let anything stop you. If you can't do it in the morning, do it after work at night, do it in the middle of the night. I've done stuff like that really in the middle of the night with an head torch, like at 4 o'clock in the morning. I saying, well, you're crazy. I'm like, no, I won't get something done. Because to me, we designed to move. We've got to I've got to do something physical. I've got to get these endorphins going on a daily basis most days, you know what I mean? And that's my drug. I do like a drink, I like a beer, I'm just like the next person, but the best drug you can have is endorphin. If they could sell you that, or you could buy that at the chemist, it'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? Because there's nothing better. I need that kickstart. And then once I've done something, and then endorphins kick in, I'm like, right, this is what I want, this is what life's about. And also it's about surrounding yourself with positive people. I always say that negativity breeds negativity. And we've all had them friends who's just always miserable and moaning about such and such, and they can be a joke. But if you stay with it, and there's more people like that, and they all start talking about down things and everything, and you say, oh, we've got this, and it's a good thing going on. And then they'll start plugging you. Say, yeah, but this could happen, and this could happen. I'm like, God, no, let's just do it. So to me, we aren't, every day you can't just wake up and start singing Come By, oh my Lord, and be dead happy and all the rest of it. Sometimes you do feel down, but to me, as long as you wake up, you're like, right, I'm up, I'm alive. Let's do something. I want to do something in this day, whether that's training or getting yourself out and doing something in society, getting yourself to the gym, giving a talk, or whatever it is. Do something, push yourself. As well, whenever I do training, I like to make sure I either sweat or I either do cardio. When I do a cardio session, it's only a 40-minute session, but by God, there's a pool of sweat when I finish, because it's a cardio, so I want that as an odd cardio. Or if I'm going on a long endurance session, I'll just like listening to my headphones and going a long run. But sometimes I find the odd time, once or twice a week, I don't put the headphones on. There's nothing better then. You're just thinking about life. You can hear pat, your feet going, and you just hear the environment around you, the birds chirping and all the rest of it, you know what I mean? And it's like that. That's what life's to be lived, It's not rehearsal, isn't it? We've got to have the best life going, and we've got to have that positive drive forward. And every person does go through bad times and feeling a bit down, but if you surround yourself with positive people, they'll build you back up. And before you know it, you're like, yeah, life's not too bad. I'm alive, I'm awake, I might be skint, I might not have much money, but money isn't everything as well. And I mean, people saying that, and it isn't. It helps you, obviously. And to me, as long as I'm comfortable, that's it. And, you know, my family are all right, and I'm comfortable, life's all, that's it. You know, what more do you want? Do you want a castle or whatever? I'm just happy, be alive, having nice food and do fitness, and just having my family, and family's everything.
You know, there's some photos of you pretty jacked and pretty ripped when you were serving. And there's also another photo of, I don't know if it was in the forest or in the jungle or something, but you've like created a pull-up bar on some trees. What were the like weird and wonderful ways you'd get workouts done when you were serving?
Yeah, you know, I was at the peak of my fitness when I was in the SAS, but I'd always have to want to do some training. We could be on a training exercise, say in the middle of the desert. And then once we finished the day, I would still be lifting up jerry cans, fuel cans, and so would others. Not everyone, but I was always that minded. I'm like, I've got to still push myself. I've still got something in the tank. I want to do something physical. I've never got a running. And I remember one time, I'll tell you something funny. I remember I'm going for a run now, and it was in the desert, but it was in the daytime. It was red hot. You know, I thought, I'm just going to run that way. There's the sun. I'm just going to head that way and turn round, come to the vehicles. Some of the lads saying, "Oh, you're crazy." And I'm like, "No, I'll be all right. Just go for a jog. I want to get the jogging," because we've been in the vehicles all day. So I started jogging, and it was only after 10 minutes. I'm like over the horizon. I'll turn back, and I can see the vehicles, just a speck. I thought, I'll go for another 20 minutes this way. So then it's like, I've done 30 minutes. I carried on running. And then I thought, now I'll just turn round. I'll do 30 minutes back. Anyway, I start jogging back. After 30 minutes, I'm like, where's the vehicles? There was no, all my tracks had left, and, you know, because there was a bit of wind blowing. I'm like, shit, where are the vehicles? I carried on moving a bit, and I thought, oh, God. And I'm like, I couldn't see the vehicles anywhere. I thought, by this time, I'm dying of thirst. I drank the bit of water I had. I thought, oh, God. And literally, it could have been really terrible, because I just thought, right, I'm going to just do a 180 degrees and run straight back to my vehicles for 30 minutes. I'll be there. I got 30 minutes is nothing. I'm like, where are them vehicles? And I was tempted to go forward. I goes, no. So I ran right for about 300 meters. Couldn't see anything. Came back, made sure I come back to the exact spot. Now I'm starting to flap a bit. And then I went left for about 400 meters. And I couldn't see anything. I was just going to turn back. And then I see these little specks way in the distance. I thought, are they rocks? And I carried on running a couple hundred meters. And then there was the vehicles. I thought, fuck. So I drifted, and I managed to get to the vehicles. And I drifted off miles. It just shows you I could have ended up being I could end up dying. And the lads were saying, wow, you've been gone. You said you're just going to be an hour. You've been gone for about an hour and a half. I'm like, yeah, I felt like doing a bit more. I never ever told them. I never told anybody, but I'm like, you dickhead, next time. But I still carried on doing it, but I always make sure I had a compass with me now and made sure I knew exactly where I was coming back to. But I've done, you know, you can do stupid things. And there was one time we was in the jungle, I'm in a bush environment, and we were doing all our drills and training, and then we just sort of popped up for the night in this area. They had like safaris around the area, and we were just camping out, you know, by the military vehicles. It was just an exercise. And I goes, I fancy a run, and my mate fancied a run again. We've been sitting in vehicles all day. So I goes, let's go for a run. And we started running through the jungle, and like there was safaris and that, like a safari park there. I mean, camping area there or whatever. I mean, some huts and that, you know, where people go. And I was jogging, and I ended up jogging through a little track through the forest, and then we carried on jogging. Thought, right, I know the area back now, let's go back. And we came back, and next minute, across this little track where we went through, all these baboons come across with their heads. And I swear, it stood up this big baboon. I'm like, from me to just a few meters away, and it was screaming at me, and you see the teeth on him. I'm like, what the f***? I'm like, what a dickhead. And then all the littlings, all these kids all went across, and then he went across. Me and my mate looked at each other. We didn't tell anybody about that. We thought, shit, we could have been ripped apart here, you know, all for the fitness. But I just love doing fitness. And in the jungle, we had like an hard day, and you're knackered. And then, but to me, I thought to myself, I've still got more in me. So we made like a little gym in the jungle, because we'd always come back to this area and then go out and do some training. You know, spending about 4 or 5 weeks in the jungle in the canopy. So I put by my basher, my hammock, I put like a pole across and doing eaves, and we just made like an area where we could do depths and everything. And yeah, just always done fitness.
What did you do? Like chop a tree down and like tie?
Yeah, just tie one branch and just make an eaves board. You can always do something. Even if you've got nothing, you've got your own body weight. You can do something, can't you, from wherever you are. But I always had that mentality, you know. And I still try and do something every day. As I say, it's either I do endurance, I do an hard cardio some days, and then sometimes I do weights. But you got these niggly injuries and everything, what sometimes you can't do. You've got to start being a bit more smarter then. Because if you've got an injury where you know it's going to set you back again, but you can still do something else to maybe work on legs instead of that body parts or something. So fitness to me it's the go-to place. I think the best thing to get over anything is that, to me, in clear head, get some fitness done. Yeah, get yourself outside your comfort zone, to do something a bit different. You know, get up in the mountains, get and surround yourself by positive people. That's it. There's no like magic wand to it, but all that takes self-discipline.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's a simple solution, but it's not easy. Like, you know, it's understandable. Like you just have to do these things, but you got to stick with it. You got to do it every single day. You got to turn it. You know, you got to keep turning up. You know, when you passed selection, what was it like with your parents? Like, was there a moment for you guys, like, of pride or?
No, I went. It's really weird. You know, you pass selection, and there was only a handful. I won't say exactly how many, because most people get in trouble. There was hardly any of us. I remember the training major, he got his berries and he just went, Chuck Downs, you're going to D squadron, such and such, you two are going B squadron, you are going, and that was it, you know. And he said, right, enjoy your time, it'll go in a flash. I remember thinking, well, I've got at least 12 years left, if not longer. And then he said, make sure you beat the clock. And I didn't know what he was on about. And I asked somebody, I goes, what was he on about, beating the clock? And we have a clock tower. And there's hardly been a year since the SAS was formed. There's only hardly ever been a year that nobody's had the name on that tower. Because you get your name on the clock tower if you die on operations, or if you die in training and you're in the SAS, then you get your name on that. So unfortunately, we've had a lot of people injured and killed on training, because everything's so realistic, and you know, unfortunate accidents happen and stuff. But that's part of it. You got to train to the as close as you can to real combat. And then when real action happens, real combat action starts, your mind just kicks into that drill. You know, it's a drill. You do it. But yeah, that's what he means by beating the clock. So I beat the clock.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that must have been I don't know, like quite heavy words to hear. You know, beat the clock. When you know what it means. You know, when you say I don't know if you can speak to this, but the training is so close to reality that you've lost guys in the training process. Is that like mainly like exhaustion or?
No, it's not mainly exhaustion. It's mainly, you know, there's been the odd accident, there's been like shooting incidents or bomb, you know, there's mortars going off in the wrong place. There's been training exercises, the parachuting, there's lots of ways within the training that...
Do you train with like a lot of live rounds then? Like,
yeah, it's mainly live rounds. That's hardly ever, but, you know, blank ammunition, maybe very, very, very odd time, but it's live. It's live, and a lot of time we were on safety as well, you know. You have to train, really build up, you know, if you're on the counter-terrorist team, you're training, not just going in a room and firing at dummies sitting there. You're going in multiple rooms, and the rooms can be dark, and then there's smoke-filled rooms, and there's different targets. You're crisscrossing each other. You've got night sights on. You've got to, you know where all your mates are and that, and still take on the threat.
And then there's live rounds in the middle of that as well.
These are all live rounds when they go in the killing houses, and it's all live ammunition. And where we're doing attacks, it's all live. They do it in the infantry as well, but they do more blank, and then they do live. But we go really close to it, because when you're doing live drills, especially in the jungle, you can't see much in the jungle. So you've got your skills. You've got to be so quick on your safety and your skills and know where people are. And but you still got to eliminate the threat, haven't you? You've still got to take out that threat. It's some crazy things and also some funny things. I remember I'd not long got there, and this taught me a lesson. We were doing this tactical landing site where you bring in aeroplanes on just so many lights. It's not a secret. And it makes a runway, so you can make a clear runway either in the desert, but we was doing this in the bush area, like a semi-jungle area. So we got an area where there's enough room for this plane to land and turn round. So what you were doing it at night time. So you put IR lights on, so unless you've got night sight, you can't see the IR lights. The infrared lights, you need night sights to see them. So basically a pilot can then practice, and there's no secret to this, practice coming in on a landing site just by seeing the lights, but it's all infrared and he's got to have these night goggles on. So we were practicing doing this in the day, and then we said, right, at this certain time we're going to be doing it, and it was quite later at night. And I remember having my weapon and all my belt kit there, and I remember this officer going around and he come, right, quick, it's coming in early, the flights. And he had so many people on the vehicle, and he went, right, jump in the vehicle now. I goes, yeah, my kit's just here. He goes, no, just leave it. I'm like, I'm not long joking. He goes, these other people there look after it, just jump on. You've got your radio and your torch. I goes, yeah. He goes, get on. And that was it, I'm on the vehicle. And I goes, because they're not long come. And I'm like, listening to him, and I'm getting on the vehicle. I didn't like leaving my weapon there. And my belt kit, it's always at arm's length. That's what we've been taught. It never leaves you. But it was like, no, just leave it there with the lads, get on. And I remember getting on the vehicle because he was making me to. I'm thinking, I don't like this. Anyway, I get to the area where we're bringing in this plane, a C-130, and it was just dark then, just getting dark, and then it was dark. So all we had to do is put the light on. So I'm at the front area, and my mate is across the runway, the makeshift runway, and now it's complete darkness, you know what I mean? So I've got a light, and then 700 meters, there's another light, and another light. So there's, say, 6 of us on this runway, and the plane can come in, all in complete darkness, apart from these infrared lights, you know what I mean, NVGs. So I'm waiting for and it says, like, the plane's coming in now in 2 minutes, and then 1 minute, and then you turn the lights on, you can see the lights. But then all I heard is, in the side, was this growling. It's like, fuck. And my mate across the other side of the runway, and he goes, can you hear that, Mal? I goes, because I can, it's right by me, not your side. And it was something crashing through the trees. I thought, fuck, I haven't got my weapon on me. Whatever. I had a Leatherman knife, a pen knife. I remember opening that, thinking, God, what do I do? Run? What is it? Do I try to get up a tree? And it was I could hear it crashing, but then now this plane's getting ready to come in. And anyway, it went by the side of me, and then it crosses the runway. And because it crossed the runway, with the ambient light, you could see all this tinned. I just saw this big pair of eyes, like glowing, and it was some sort of, I don't know what, it was some big cat, you know what I mean? Right. And yeah, because it come in the clearing, I'm like, fuck. And then it went across, and then the plane's coming in, and the noise made it shoot off it just then. And the plane landed, and that was it. My mate goes, okay, now, I could have been eating there. What was it? It was some big cat. And there's me with a Leatherman and a torch. What can I do? But that taught me a lesson then. I thought, I'll never, ever, it doesn't matter who orders me, and this is like my boss. I'm not going anywhere without my rifle and bucket, you know?
Whereabouts was that?
I won't tell you exactly because I'm probably getting in trouble. But it was in a bush area. Just say it was in a bush area.
A bush area. So I'm just trying to imagine what kind of cat it could have been. So it could have been like a panther, jag,
fucking lion. That's how you go. Look, I'm telling your wife that. Well, not me. Somebody telling your wife, well, we've got this left of him. A couple of bones.
Imagine. Wow.
Serious.
Wow.
But we've had people killed by animals in the past as well, by hippos and elephants and so on. And yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, when you go tell your parents about getting into the SAS, had your dad passed that point, or was your dad still?
No, my dad was still alive. But he didn't know for 3 years. Other people told him from around the estate, because I got in from my old unit. My unit was from around that area. So they had people come on leave, and it was like, wow, this guy's got in the SAS. He was from our regiment. He was only the second ever bloke get in, or the third, including the officer, who's ever got in the SAS since the SAS was formed. Many have tried, nobody's got in. So my name got around within this. So when the lads come on leave from this regiment, a lot of them from Stoke-on-Trent, and I'm from Stoke-on-Trent. And so before you know it, we know a guy who's in the SAS, and then my dad heard about it from other people, and he didn't know for about 3 years. And he goes, wow, son, I hear you in this. I went, yeah, Dad. And it just made his head explode. He was always proud of me anyway. You know, he's proud of me and my brother. My brother never went in the military, but he was always proud of us. But when I went for the military, you know, even when I passed out as a 16-year-old, he was so proud, and sometimes it was embarrassing proud. I'd go out with him, I'd say, shut up, Dad, don't keep on going on about the military. I'm dead proud of my son, he's in the army, you know. And it really made him such a, you know, happy person, happy bloke for me, and he just loved everything about me being in the military. So when he found out I was in the SAS, he was over the moon, even though he didn't know much about it. And then next minute, I'm seeing he's reading all these books about it. How come you know? I'm like, Dad. So yeah, he was so chuffed.
Was you one of the first black guys in the SAS? Is that right?
Yeah, I was one of the first British-born black guys, because these people have come from like the Fijian equivalent, or the Maoris from the New Zealand SAS, and then they've had to still do our full SAS course. So there was people of single, but there was very few British-born black guys. So I was one of the first, yeah. But that's got, it doesn't matter. There's no, in the SAS, getting in the SAS, it doesn't matter what colour, what race, what not. If you're good enough, you're good enough. If you're not, you're not. There's none of that. It's unique and it's fantastic.
It's so funny that, you know, what stopped you joining so early on was just some rumour by some guy that you couldn't go, because, it's crazy.
You know, I wouldn't have gone for it, because I just believe that if it weren't for this officer who was actually in there telling me go, I wouldn't have gone for it. So that's another lesson for people, is don't always believe the hype, you know what I mean? You double check it yourself and triple check it, because it's so easy to just take people's words for it, and especially politicians into it. That's why, you know, I'm into debating, and you look at all sides of stuff, and I always just say, like, a good one's a good and a bad one's a bad, and, you know, give people a chance, but then it's their loss. Yeah, I treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter who they are. They're good and bad in every culture and religion.
What was the difference for you, like adjusting to the SAS, like the different kind of work that you would do? Was it, obviously it was hard, like more was at stake and that kind of stuff, but like...
Well, you're training up for either an operation or something what's going to come off you. A lot of the time it's training for a mission, or some likely mission, or, you know, some scenario. If it's in the counter-terrorist team, you'd be training on planes, buses, coaches, you name it. Anything what could be hijacked or whatever from a criminal within the UK. And then also you're just training in desert environments, jungle environments, Arctic environments. So there's been times when I've been in the hottest place in the world, like in the Sahara, and then I've suddenly been in the coldest place in the world, and vice versa 2 weeks later. You know what I mean? So, but you use that. It's a lot of times it's a strategic level, not just a tactical level. And sometimes you go as a group, or sometimes go away as an individual, or just a couple of you. You go away and do something, or advise on something, or you're bringing in you're the air controller, you're the forward air controller for something. There's an awful lot going on. Obviously, I can't talk about it within the world that people don't know about, and all over the place. So you know that you haven't got. There's no bullshit in the SAS. There's none of this rumours, no march. There's none of that, because you just haven't got time for any of that. It's not that. Everybody, like the normal military, is formal. It has to be formal for a reason, because you've got young recruits from everybody. Some people haven't got as much stuff. You know, they've got to have that formal rank structure. And even though we have a rank structure, it's nowhere near formal. It's uninformal. Everybody knows everybody by the name. There's no saluting. There's no yesing. no, sir. It's not. You don't call anyone sir, because you're all just getting on with a mission. But you've got that much responsibility. Everybody's got there, right? This is a job. You get on with it and do it. And they want to. Everybody has a say in it. Yeah, the boss. Who will have the ultimate say, but they'll ask opinions. How do you reckon we do this job, and so on. And you've got to be prepared to put up ideas, because sometimes the idea is what you think. Oh, nobody's going to go for that. The most ridiculous idea. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's go for it that way. Because that's what the SAS do. They think outside the box. They don't just go down that tunnel. They like to go to the way of doing a job where people think there's no way you can do it that way. And you'd be surprised.
Yeah, you've said quite a few different environments there and like situations. How important is it to be adaptable? Just not even just for SAS, just like in general. Like, have you seen? Because I know we've spoken about some successful people today as well. Spoke about Ben Francis and those kind of guys as well. I feel like they apply a lot of the teachings that you talk about to their business and to their day-to-day life. So, how important is adaptability? Because you're talking about some Sahara and, it's kind of crazy differences.
You've got to adapt. You've got to adapt to an economic situation. You've got to adapt and overcome. You've got to be flexible. You've got to adapt, and you've got to drill and train and get things right. And we always, when we're training and doing stuff, we always go back to the basics again. And start off on the basics, even though it might only been 18 months since you did it, and practice again at the basics. But there has to be times when some of the stuff we've done, you think, wow, that's amazing. Like, I remember we were training in the hottest area of the world, and usually you have that much ammunition. You want lots and lots of ammunition when you're going into an attack. And this was just a training attack, a practice attack. So we all piled up loads and loads of ammunition. We just had like a 3-litre water bottle, camel pack on the back, and another litre of water there. Now we were attack, suppress. We were going from attack, suppress, reserve, and this is like doing on the ground. And it was about 50 degrees. It was hot as you go. But we got all the body armor, helmets. And know what happened? Usually you run out of ammunition, or your ammunition's getting low and you need ammunition brought up. This time, no. Everybody had loads of ammunition. Every man jack had run out of water, because you were that thirsty. You were constantly sucking up the water. And we're like, everybody was no water. We couldn't carry on. And that taught us a lesson then, because I thought, right, if I'm ever in this environment and I'm going into attack, I'll sacrifice some ammunition for carrying extra water. And the same thing happened. I've done in the Arctic. There's been mistakes happen on training, because there was one time we were needed a resupply of ammunition. And the ammunition, instead of coming in clips, where you need mittens to fire your weapon, you don't have the trigger guard on it. And then when you load a magazine, you can just use the thumb, and it's got a clip of 10 rounds and push the rounds down. You could do that. For some reason, the ammunition come to us and is in boxes instead of clips. So you had to take your hand out of these mittens, to just with touch gloves, to get the bullets out individually, and then try and put the bullets inside the magazine. I could get 2 to 3 bullets in, and your hands would be freezing. So you couldn't do it. So the firefight, we couldn't win the firefight. There was hardly any rounds going back down. This was just a training exercise, but that made us make sure that the echelons further back 100% have got the right ammunition to come in here. Because if that happened for real, that would have been us. So, it's not always just training to push it out. You learn things from the training beforehand. Just them 2 simple things about, I knew now if I was going in an environment that hot and I'm going to do this sort of attack, I prefer to forsake some ammunition and have some more water. Or if we're in the Arctic, make sure that we've got the right ammunition clips. You can't use individual fill magazines individually when it's that cold, when it's minus 30 degrees. You know what I mean? Just simple things like that. Well, we say simple, but if it happened in reality, it could be, we could have lost that battle.
Well, I mean, that is so interesting you say that. I think this is such a strong message to people who are not in the military, who might be frozen by fear of failing and stuff like that. Is like, the difference is you in like civilian world, like if I take a risk in business, it's not life or death. Like if I make a mistake on what I'm doing, it's not life or death. And like every single training thing that I do and I can fail and I can learn from it. you guys have your training and that's it. Once you're out there, you can't make that mistake. And like you say with the ammo, I think we have such a privilege to be able to continually risk fear of failing, and you can fail fast, fail often, and keep moving forward. And I think with you guys, like once training day's over, that's it. It's game time. Like that is, you guys have to perform at the top level.
Yeah, 100%. But also, I'm just going to be honest here. I have seen some failure because people then have stopped doing the right thing and basically took on a bit more than what they could. And I've seen people die because the wrong mistakes there has been mistakes made. And if they would have listened to local advice, this wouldn't have happened. And I won't talk about it too much, but there sometimes people forget about that. How can I say David Stilling's ethos is classlessness, humility, integrity, pursuit of excellence, and a sense of humor. And this situation, I can't say it exactly, but basically one of our bosses, he fought classlessness because this military we were training with, we didn't really listen to them. They weren't as good as us. They were not very good at their job and all the rest of it. But that's not their fault. It's just that country, what they was in. But what they did have is knowledge of the area. And they said we shouldn't be doing something this way and going in this area. And I always remember thinking, we've got to listen to these guys. And our boss said, nah, we can do it. Not we the SAS. He didn't say it like that. He's like, thanks, but no thanks. I won't do it this way. And I just wish they listened. We wouldn't have somebody killed on that job. You know what I mean? And I thought, you can say it's mistakes, but that was just not following David Stilling's ethos. He was thinking of classlessness. You're below me, and that's wrong. So people can start getting a bit laid back, even in the SAS. And that ethos, if you think about it, classlessness, that means you can work with anybody. It doesn't matter if you work in McDonald's. There's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's. I like the chips and burgers, but you know what I mean? But it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you've got that same ethos, you think about it, them 5 things, it's brilliant. Classlessness. I don't care who you are, what nationality, what country, what religion, we all get on. Whether you're rich, poor, we all get on. It doesn't matter, yeah? So that's classlessness, in my opinion. Humility. Nobody likes if somebody's a big head, and just don't be arrogant. Just get on and be a good person. Humility speaks for itself. It doesn't matter if you're a Formula 1 racing driver or in the SAS, or if you're a cleaner or whatever. Classlessness and humility is massive. Integrity. Nobody likes a liar. I prefer to have a thief than a liar, because you can't trust that liar. If somebody lies to you, it's like in a relationship. If they lie to you, and they've had an affair or whatever, they lie, that's it. You can't trust them. You can't. No, a lie. I don't mean a little white lie, like, my wife says to me many occasions, oh, how many drinks did you have last night? I say, only 3 pints. But you know what I mean? But no, trust is everything. If you lie, the trust is gone. You've broken trust, that's it. Whether in the SAS or not, or whatever job. So classlessness, humility, integrity, pursuit of excellence. I don't care what it is. Like I said before, you can do it better next time. Whether that's, if you're cleaning something, just do a good job of it. Pick up everything. It doesn't matter if you're in the SAS or whatever job you're doing, do the best. If you were flipping burgers at McDonald's, stop flipping them faster and better. Just could do the job better each day. Think of which ways I can do the job better or go faster, and you pursuing excellence, you'll get noticed. Don't just ever sit back on your laurels. And that's what we did on that day. And then finally, a sense of humor. And you've got to have a sense of humor in life. Nobody likes working with people who are there's no humor. And that's sort of getting lost within society now. You've got to be able to have a joke. We know what a joke's a joke, and you know what hatred is, and you know what isn't. Just let's get on with life and have a laugh. And even if that's just smiling, if believe it or not, if I go for a run, I say hello to everyone. Good morning. Sometimes they look at you as if you're crazy or scared or whatever. And then if they do, I don't bother. That's them. They might be thinking of something else. They might have, have other problems. But to me, it's like good money. But you'd be surprised how many people then, whoa, good money back, or somebody smiles at you, good morning. Or when you see somebody in Starbucks, whatever, I'll say, what's your name? If I can't see the badge, I'll ask for the name. I'll say, how's it going? Not because I'm just like, you could pick that person up for the day just by smiling at the person and just saying, how are you doing? And you don't know what's going on in their life, what sort of day or night they've had, do you? So it's just that. So the sense of humour is massive. And that ethos, I would say, within that, you throw in something like respect and self-discipline, and then you've got everything, haven't you? Well, as far as I'm concerned, if you live life by that, you can't go wrong.
I'm curious as to you were serving up until 2005, right?
Yeah.
What happened in 2001 after the World Trade Center? Like, did you notice a big difference?
Oh yeah, I remember I was on the counter-terrorist team and we saw that happening. I remember coming into the room and we have like a meeting room, and this was going on TV. I thought it was like some film they're watching. And he says, right, we're going to be mega busy now. And that was it. That was the start of it. Bam, 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 bam. Yeah. It got really, really busy. And it still is. It's never sort of slowed down from then, Yeah, but I got out the right time. I was going to stay on for longer. But what I used to see is, well, especially a young guy in the SAS, I used to see some of the older guys who were like on the reserve SAS, and they could come back and help on the exercises and all that. And I used to think, who are these old men, granddad, what are they doing? The belts are really worn, the berries worn. And I just didn't want to be that person. I thought, no, I'm getting out now. I've done all my time. I'm getting out and I'm going to try and make some money, because you don't make money in the SAS. So I went on the circuit and I went looking after American journalists in Baghdad. And at that time, it was when they were, they wanted American journalists in a boiler suit and chop the head off. And they really did want to get an American journalist in that suit and that orange boiler suit. And we were just the security of them. There was just me and another SAS guy, and then we'd swap around. Somebody would be in the accommodation we were staying. We weren't staying in the secured green zone. We were just staying in an hotel. And then the hotel got blown up, and then we stayed in the villa, and you were taking the press out, because the press, the news want to go, as soon as that bomb goes off, they won't go there and see what's going on. They want to talk to the bad guys as well as the good guys. So some jobs were quite dodgy, you know what I mean? Obviously we were armed and the weapons were hidden. We had a pistol down his pants and a long rifle in a tripod bag. So anybody thinks we just part of the news crew, we weren't. We're the eyes and ears, and you watching what's going on, situation awareness. And there's been some close escapes. There's been times when we've moved from a job or didn't do a job, and then people who was in that area stayed too long, and the other teams, the French and the Italian journalists, got kidnapped. You know what I mean? And our countries wouldn't pay. The US and UK won't pay, so we would have been gone straight away, the security. I mean, there's been a lot of other occasions when it was some really dodgy times and that, and dangerous situations. But through our training and that, and you're working with a mate, even though there's only two of you, he'll die for you and you'll die for him. So, we did that. So I managed to do that for about 4 years, and then I got a job training special forces out in the Middle East. So I was still always, my get out of the military was quite steady. I didn't just go from being in the military, a full-on job, a really dynamic job, to being a complete civvy. That's why a lot of people then have problems. I sort of gradually came into it. I carried on carrying a weapon, looking after news crews, and then I was training special forces. Even though I wasn't going out on the operations, these guys were training for operations. So you were training them, and then you were still using weapons and that every day. So I gradually, come into civilian life, and now here I am.
Yeah, you're right. You've had a decent transition period.
Yeah, that's what the word transition.
What was is there a situation that stands out of the private security stuff that you was doing that stood out of that's an interesting story or anything? Yeah,
there's lots of times. There's one time I took on a team, and sometimes you watch it. I was guaranteed I'd have an ex-SAS guy with us, and it wasn't just me. So I took on a team I didn't know about, and it got to the stage where people want bums on seats working across there. They don't want quality. Whereas if you have an ex-Delta guy, an ex-SEAL guy, an ex-SAS guy, or an ex-SBS guy, they get paid good money for it. For keeping the money down, they started not wanting special forces guys or people with a lot more experience. They started having people who just got out of the military and from different countries who just got out of the military and so on. So I ended up having a team of people who'd all had any military service, and they were from all over the place, and they were useless. So I'm like trying to train them up, and I'm going on this job, escorting people, working on a site in an area where it was really dangerous, and they were with me in the backup, and I had like 4 Iraqis with us. I didn't know anything about them as a backup vehicle, and we got in contact with it as well. And luckily, it was American military what got us out of it, because these guys I was with were just useless. And they were running around like headless chickens. The Iraqi team just ran off. They just drove past. Goodbye. And then we got a vehicle bogged in, and it could have been curtains because I had nobody with us who was competent enough. I'm like, what the I knew it was one of them jobs I thought I shouldn't take it on, and I shouldn't have took on. But I said, yeah, I'd do it. But I was guaranteed this. And it didn't happen. Instead of just walking away, I thought, right, I said I'd do it. I'll go to my word. I'll do it. But luckily, I made up connections with this American unit when I was out there, and I asked them to keep on swinging by the area where we were. And luckily, they saved us, to tell you the truth. But without them, I wouldn't have got out of it. Wow. So, yeah, that was a lucky escape. And there's been another escape where I remember I was in this Hotel Mansour in the middle of Baghdad. And it was a massive hotel. It was outside the green zone. So they used to use our hotel. It was about 1.5 kilometres, 1,800 metres from the green zone. They used to use our hotel as an aiming mark. They think, right, if we fire over this 12-storey hotel, then the Katyusha rockets or mortars would land in the green zone. A lot of times you'd have drop shots. They'd land all over the place. And there was this one time I was downloading photos. This would have been about 2008 or something, or 2007, around that time anyway. Yeah, was it done? Yeah. Well, anyway, once I got out and I was doing this with the news, and I remember getting some of these photos coming through, and it's really slow internet, and it was my baby, one of my kids, and I was like, great. And I arranged to go do a bit of training in the morning with this correspondent who was going out. No, he was a cameraman actually, sorry, this cameraman. And when he used to come in, we used to do some training together. The training was a little gym down in the hotel grounds. And I remember saying to him, right, be up at this time, I'll take you training because later on we're going on a job. He goes, yeah, okay. Anyway, they generally still like a good drink of the night time. And he was still drunk from there. Obviously, we didn't drink. We were there security looking after him. So I knocked on the door, goes, come on, we're going training. And he went, no, give us another half an hour, Mal. I goes, yeah, okay, because then I could carry on downloading these photos. But then something clicked. I started downloading them. I thought, no, I won't go training now. I goes, come on, let's go now. And he went, yeah, okay. And as soon as we got downstairs, within that time, a Katyusha rocket landed in the ground and bang. Anyway, that went off and I said, right, stay where you are. We'll go back up to the accommodation now because we was on the 3rd floor. I went back up there and it's just fate or something was looking after me, because where I was sitting down, downloading on the computer pictures of my kid in my room, a Katyusha rocket had hit the grounds and a big chunk of shrapnel had come off to 90 degrees, and come through like the patio windows, because when I come through the room, there was just glass everywhere. I'm like, the rocket had landed at a different angle, but a big lump of metal had come through, rebounded off the wall. I know this because I've seen the tracks, I traced it. My chair went straight through the chair where I was sitting and stuck in the carpet on the ground. I remember coming in like, wow. I didn't know what, I remember it was white hot, and I went to try and pick it up, and it was, when we got it out, it was a big chunk of metal, military metal, shrapnel, what had gone through there. Now I was going to stay, and at the same time, I would have still been downloading the photos, but something made me just think, no, go now. I'm like, wow. God, somebody was looking after me, but that was just, I don't know, fate, or it was just, I don't know what it was, but I wouldn't be here now 100%. But then there's been other occasions, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, working out saved your life there. That was a
Oh,
good
yeah,
one.
yeah.
That was a good one. Wow. Okay. I'm curious, after, we spoke about you as a child, like, I'm just thinking, like, when you was a kid, was there a moment like because you'd obviously built some resilience, facing all of that kind of stuff as a kid, you'd built some resilience. And I think throughout your career, it sounds like you had that with you throughout, you had that with you throughout. But when you was a kid, like, was there a moment when you'd felt alone with the experience you was going through? Because you said you hadn't told your dad for a long time, at least at that point. Was you by yourself, like?
Yeah, I was by myself as a little kid then. Getting bullied in the school, and you did feel alone. It was you against everybody else. I was the only black kid in that year in class, and there was only one other mixed race kid in the entire school. So, and then he was in the older years, and he'd left, and that's what it was. And God, that's why I still, to this day, when I think about that, I can still get goose pimples, and it will always remain as my most scariest moment in life, even though I was never going to get killed or I was just getting bullied. But you as a young child, you don't realize that. It's the most scariest moment.
Did you think?
But all that, it just makes you all resilient. It makes you better resilient. So I now, and I've seen people in years time who used to be bullies, and they were civilians now, and I'm in the military and whatever. And then you see them later on, they got big fat bellies, and not all of them, but they all like, want to be your mate and that. And sometimes I've said, I remember you from this time, and but if anything, I thank him. I'd shake your hand. I'd say, well done, because you made me a stronger person, because I faced up to it. And you've got to, and no matter what in life, don't die under a duvet. We've all done the embarrassing things, or been, I've got faced up to my boss, I've got to do something now, things have gone wrong. Get up and get on with it, be a man and just get on with life. Or be that person, not just a man, just get on with your life. Stop complaining about little things in life when there's a lot worse going on. And I've repeated myself again. We've got a great country. It's fantastic. And yeah, there's going to be bad people around. So what? Just you be you, and you stay on that good side. And we all know what's right and wrong, and crack on, enjoy life.
Well, I think, it's interesting you'd had these situations happen to you and you'd built resilience. And I'm curious, some people, nobody will get through life without, something happening to them, some hardship. But I think some people get through the earlier stages of their life. Maybe, they haven't experienced death yet, or losing somebody, or relationship breakdowns or anything like that. And maybe don't get to develop the resilience based on the fact that life's just not giving them a bad hand. Do you recommend people going out and finding difficult situations to build resilience? Like, like some of the stuff you're talking about, like you just recently ran 365 kilometers or whatever, like doing those kind of things, like, do they help build resilience?
100%. You've got to do something completely outside your comfort zone. Whether that's doing an half marathon, whether it's doing a challenge. There's lots of these events going on. I do events with my mate, taking through these different challenges. And you'd be surprised what you can do, but you've got to challenge yourself. You've got a lot of people don't do stuff because it's going to be hard. No, you want to do it because it's hard. If it's easy, why do it? You've got to challenge yourself physically and mentally. I don't care what. I know where I'm losing out on. I need to start reading more books and that. I keep on, because I go on holiday and I take the same book with me all the time, but I need to be a bit more that side. But you just got to do something different, but mainly challenge yourself. You can, even if it's the coach from the couch to 5K, get out there, do something that'll build you up, and just having that self-discipline is getting off your arse and doing it. And the hardest part is starting it. Then once you do it, you'll get used to it, and before you know it, that builds consistency, and that builds growth, and you'll just feel not right if you don't do something, and go for the next challenge. We're human beings. Don't just sit back and say, right, okay, I've made all this money, I've had a good job, but what really have I done in life? How much have I pushed myself? How much can I say to my kids growing up, right, you can do this. I can prove you can do this. I did this when I was, but they don't have to be like you. My son, he's got nothing to do with the military. He ain't bothered about the military. And he's a chef. He's going to, qualified chef. So that to me is brilliant. And my daughter, she's at university on the third year. She's going to be a doctor. You know, my wife's a teacher and she's doing a very important job. Never in a million years would I think, I've come from a council estate, I'm going to have kids who's going to be a doctor and all the rest of it. I couldn't do that job. You know what I mean? Well, I could. I'd do it, but not. I've done the medical stuff, but I couldn't do all the proper research and that. I mean, all the studying, all them years in university. Well, when I said I couldn't, if I had the chance, I most probably would. But you've got to have that mindset. My mindset was for the military. That's what I want to go. So let people, and then even if they don't like that job, I would be a bit pissed off because it's costing us an awful lot of money, to tell you the truth. But if they want change and then move on to something different, don't stay in a job if you hate it and it's not you. You know what I mean? Is it worth it for the money or whatever? No. You get yourself and do something what you enjoy.
You know, it's interesting when you say about doing things that you find difficult, or doing difficult things. And then you say about reading books. And like, to some people, reading books comes naturally to them. And I think that's the thing, is like, when you're trying to build resilience, is finding the things you're avoiding the most. Like those things you're avoiding. Like I enjoy running. So for me, going out for a run, I have to push it to a really far extreme for it to become resilient building. Otherwise, I'm just enjoying it. Like if it's under 20 miles, I'll love the run. But reading books is one for me. Like I struggle to read a book. Like that's a really difficult one. Or a really interesting one I think that you do is speaking on stage, public speaking. I couldn't think of anything more scary. Like if I had to stand on stage and speak to people, I'd probably evaporate. So like to me, that's probably where I would find most growth, is being able to stand on stage and try and speak in front of people. I think that's it. Going towards the things you're trying to avoid the most. I'm interested, actually. How was the first time you did a public speaking?
You hit the nail on the head. That's why I was doing the public speaking. I wasn't going to be doing any of these events because I'm the same as you. That's like not natural for me. You know, I can give orders and do that. But just going out into a complete corporate environment or a different environment, or even school kids and a few hundred people or whatever, and you're standing up there and you're giving your spin on life and so on. Obviously, you talk to whichever the client is, or if the kids are there, it's a bit different type of language. You know, I don't swear anyway, very rarely. But it's like, you're in this environment. That to me is the scariest thing as well. And that's one reason I like doing them, because I'm like, I'm doing something. I'm not happy. I'm outside my comfort zone. That's why, because it's outside my comfort zone. That's why I want to do it and do more. And again, you build from it.
Do what scares you? 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And like reading books, like I'm reading more books now, but I need to read more. But to me, they've got to be interesting as well. And, you know, but you've got to give it time. So I've got a book. It's called Unbreakable.
So getting on to that is, what was that process like, authoring your own book? Like going over all the memories, like pulling up all, I saw you taking some notes down on some of your back of your photos and stuff. Like, how did you pull it all together? And like, what was that process like for you?
Process was amazing. It was actually very therapeutic, because I used to come back from there, and it was the ghostwriter as well, who was brilliant, who got a lot of it out of me, because he'd take me back to the very beginning, and it's stuff like you don't think about naturally. You don't, anything bad, you sort of put it at the back of your mind, don't you? You don't really want to talk about it, but he brought out stuff I've not thought about or talked about for donkey's years, you know what I mean? And then he'll ask you to say, like, okay, and what did it smell like then? And you think, hey, and then you can smell the smells, what it was like living in this house and what the people were like, and you're like, you sort of get that sense back, and then you start remembering more. So afterwards, sometimes I was like coming back and thinking, wow. And then near the end of it, sometimes it was quite emotional. I'll come back and I nearly was crying to myself, you know what I mean? I was like, God, because you brought out some other stuff. And then it was, I'm so glad I did it. So like I said, now I forgot myself, didn't I? We've got a doctor, we'll have a doctor, a teacher, a chef, and an author. I never thought I'd be an author. Published author, never in a million years. So it was really very therapeutic doing it, and it took 18 months. It was all like going down to London every now and again, but I'm so glad I've done it. And it was like, whoa, I released a lot. And how can I say, it's like the stuff you put at the back of your mind, after a bit, it mounts up, and before you know it, you're going to have that many bad memories there and you don't want to talk about. Then they can explode. This is the way I think about it, or implode, you know what I mean? You've got to let them memories out. It's like Somebody said it's like having an open cut, and if you put a cut inside your coat, you know, or you just keep it covered all the time, it will fester for longer. It won't take longer to heal. Whereas if you have an open cut and lay it out in the open, the fresh air, it heals faster. And that's the way, if you can sort of understand life like that. And so it's true. And years ago, people didn't talk about stuff, you know, mental health and that. So I think, especially when I joined the military, nobody did. So it's good that people are talking more. It doesn't mean you're pussies or anything. It's true, because I've known that many people who've committed suicide and who've had problems. You think, God almighty, why? So the least people, last person on earth, sometimes you think, would do something like that. But it can affect people. It could be something emotionally, it could be financial problem. You know, we all know it. And if it meant talking about it, just seeing them, asking people how they're doing, if that could have helped them, God. And sometimes you think to yourself, did I miss something? You know?
What's how many people have you seen who've come from your background career-wise who have committed suicide? Like, what do you think the reason was? Like the main reasons are?
I've had several people who I know of. Some of them were close friends, some of them were companions or work colleagues, and a lot of the reasons I don't know. I just don't know. You know, maybe they've had bad marriage problems or stuff, or one of them was we think it was financial problems, but there was nothing written, you know, left no notes and stuff like that. So it's not always where people leave notes. You just don't know what's going on. To me, something was going on in there, obviously, to do it, you know? Not just a bad relationship or financial problems, but there's something, maybe if it was picked up sooner by a friend or somebody and they talked about it, they could have got that out of them.
I think you're right about, bottling it up, like keep constantly putting things on top of each other and just burying them down. I think talking about it, I'm not saying like talking about it's just a fix. Like I think there's, you know, you have to have a multi-faceted approach to fixing these kind of things, but talking about it, I feel, relieves a bit of that pressure. Like if you're just pushing everything down, at some point you're going to explode. Like, and it could just be through alcohol, bad behavior, you know, like fights and stuff like that. And if you can just relieve a bit of that pressure every so often, I think that's where talking about it's a great thing. Writing it down, like I'm sure the process you went through for the book was therapeutic at times to, you know, remember some of those things. Yeah, I think that's a super important thing to do every so often. Otherwise,
and it's also capturing the youth. You know what I mean? Because I've that many friends as well when they've grown up who got in trouble by the police and you know, did burglary or whatever, and they wanted me to go out and just keep a lookout with them and stuff like that. And there's no way I would, because if it was my dad, he would have killed me for one start, and two, I don't think it was right. And I'm so glad, because sometimes you see them with all this money and that going down one line, but at the end of the day, they all got caught, and eventually, they had a criminal record, and that's on there. That stopped them then achieving things in life. You know what I mean? So it's trying to capture the youth, and even though people who say done minor crime, I say minor crime because I do believe crime should be punished properly, but minor crime, and then try to get them on the straight and narrow. You know what I mean? The young people do stupid things. I've done a lot of stupid things when I was a kid. Not breaking somebody's house or anything like that, but you've done stupid things. We all have. So I'm all in for trying to help people like that. And if you can tell them, right, I've come from a bad background. I've done a fighting background. I've done stuff in the past I'm not proud of. But it's so easy to get the money by going down that bad road, you know, maybe selling drugs or whatever it is. Then, right, no, I'm not going to get involved in that gang. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do the right thing. It's going to be harder work. Maybe not have as much money as them, but I'm going to do the right way and do a challenge and do something what's going to better my life and make my family proud.
Well, I was about to say that. I think this is a nice point to sort of finish on, is that other path you could have taken, you know, growing up on that estate, being surrounded by poverty, Probably the carrot was dangled in front of you. You might have seen the local drug dealer driving a nice car, or, you know, the only person with success and money was usually into dodgy things and doing dodgy things. That other path for you could have been really bad. And I'm sure there's a lot of people facing that right now, where they're like either in poverty, struggling on benefits, or from a working class background, and they might only see their path to success, or path for what they perceive as success, is to deal drugs, get into gang violence and all that kind of stuff. How do you now, standing here today, convince somebody to go down the path that is harder to walk, like especially the military, but it's harder to walk, more work, involves more integrity, more pride, all these kind of things, and is, on a financial level at the start, is less rewarding? Like, how do you convince somebody to do that?
Well, I'd say, right, you can either go down the easy way or the hard way. And you've got to pick the hard way. It's hard for a reason, you know what I mean? You're going to struggle. It's going to be difficult. You aren't going to have all that what your peers have got. And it's very difficult when you're a kid. But it makes benefit later on in life. It'll all come round. I do believe in karma, and I do believe what goes round comes round. And if you work hard at whatever you want, you might not have all the money, you might not have all these galactic fancy cars and everything, but you go in the right direction, and you might never get that massive car, but you'll have a better peace of mind, you know what I mean? And you'll have a family, and they'll be proud of you. Just go the opposite way. You can still get to where you want to, but you're doing it the right way. It's more difficult, but as I say, choose difficult, and you'll get there. And then you'll look back and you'll realize, especially when they were in prison, or that it will happen, that the bad things were dead, that, wow, I'm so glad I never took that path, because I was so tempted on many occasions. And friends were doing the bad way, and they got all the money, got all the nice gear, and there's me. And a lot of times coming back even from the military, as a 16-year-old coming back on leave, and think I've got loads of money because I've saved up this money, and then, no, the grass isn't greener on the other side. I've seen it, and I've seen blokes get out of the military early, and 99% of them wish they didn't. They say, I wish I stayed in, I wish I did this, and you know, and I'm like, wow. But it's so tempting, it really is. It's just getting that, right, finding that mentor if need be. Get somebody and say, right, I just need a bit of guidance, whether that's a relative. I was lucky, I remember Dad around me, he was guidance, and plus I was scared, because I knew if I did anything wrong, he'd bout the hell out of me, and he's warned me about that. So that was one of the reasons. But also, I just respected him that much as well. I wouldn't want to do it. I think even if I was bringing up as a single parent, it was just me and my mum bringing me up as a one parent family, I'd still do the right thing, because at the end of the day, that's what we used to do. It's so easy to go down that way. Do you want the easy way? No. Do the hard way, and you will get results. It takes time, takes practice, takes patience, but it will come to you if you really want it.
And it lasts, and you can live with yourself as well. When you get it fast and illegally, you usually lose it fast, and it's harder to live with yourself.
Yeah, one thing we're all going to do at one stage, we're all going to die, aren't we? And if you're on that bed, or when you get, old and whatever, you can look back and you think, right, okay, I had all this, but, or I've done okay, or I've been a good person, and I'm just done all right. I've brought up kids, and I've just, I've not made millions or whatever, but I've had a good life. I've enjoyed my life. There's been hardship, but I'm here. I'm like, wow. I'm on my deathbed. I've got no regrets. I've done what I've wanted. I've lived that life. And as I said, so long as I'm comfy, my family's comfortable, I don't want any more. Just give me, I'm happy now. Just get out, keeping doing my fitness. As I say, I'm out my zone doing these talks, but I enjoy doing them because it's outside my zone. So that's why I'm doing something what's outside the box, because you've got to do something what is difficult, whether that's climbing a mountain, do it, but just do it. Just split everything up. There's no task too big for you. Just take small steps at a time, one foot in front of the other, and eventually you'll get to the top of the mountain. There's no secret. But don't think that project, anything is too big for you. Just say, right, that's massive. Don't think I'm going to do this just right. I'm just going to do this block. live day by day, and before you know it, you've chipped away at it. And I break things up and break things down, so to say, in chunks, and just keep going. And yeah, you'll have a happy life.
I love that advice, mate. Everybody who's watching, I fully recommend the book. Like, we'll link it down below. But like, if we're to point people to places, we can show that the Amazon link's a good one for the book, right?
Yeah.
But what's your sort of, what's next? Like, what's the next thing you're sort of looking at doing?
Well, I'd love the book to come over in a documentary or a drama or even movie, you know what I mean? That's what but hey, I'm pestering people, and people may be looking at it, I don't know, or looking at this and hopefully say, wow, I'll get that book, and yeah, this will make a good drama. Or
if we can help, man, I'm down for it. If we can help, it's an incredible story, and I think people just need to go read the book first, and they'll understand. Like, it really is. I mean, your whole life story is I say it like it's what do you call it? Like a novel or something. But this is your life. Like, this is a life that you've actually lived.
Yeah, it's really, and it's, to put it all out there, your life, and letting it all out to the world, some of the secrets, some of the bad parts of it as well. It's quite difficult, but if it's out to other people, that's great. And by the way, for every book, people think you sell a book and you're going to make loads for every book I sell. I say to people, I make about 1 pence out of this. So at this rate, in 20 years' time, I'll be able to take my wife on holiday to Butlins for a weekend in Skegness. So that's what I'm doing it for. No, joking aside, it's not that. Yeah, I'm just so glad I did the book, and if it helps anybody in any way, and even just doing these little videos, I'm not I still don't know how to do TikTok, but I'm not an Instagram person or anything. My mate just told me to do this because I was on that SAS show one time. And he goes, oh, you're going to have to do this. And I was only on for like a few episodes, and then the Americans took over. So I knew I wasn't going to be on there for long. But I thought, why do we need this social media now? It's not me. But then I had that many people, or a few people DM me saying, Mal, you're getting me off my horse just by going for a run. Or, wow, I'm an old dude and I haven't done anything for a bit, and I can see you at the same age and you getting up and doing a run. Just by putting these little videos on. So that's why I just put a video on, like if I'm running, and just, right, I'm not doing anything special, I'm doing a run. And yeah, and then it might make somebody else, okay, if he's doing a run and he's 60 years old and he's not, why aren't I doing a run? Or why aren't I doing some fitness? Or why aren't I getting outside my comfort zone? Why? Or, it might make another 60-year-old do it. It doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter. If I've helped somebody get off the arse and do something, then that's that. And also, what I would say to people, that what's really livened me up is my dog. I've got a dog, I've always wanted a dog, but because of the situation, my parents would never let me have a dog. And then I was in the military, I couldn't have a dog. And then I was in Dubai, and it was too hot for a dog. I thought it was cruel, but my wife promised me, she says, when we come back, the second year we'll get a dog. And now I've got my dream come true. Like, and to me, I'm like, a lot of time, my missus goes, you're like a puppy dog. In the morning, you wake up and you just want to do things. I'm like, yeah, I'm alive. And now it's doubled because I've got my dog as well. I'm like, wow. I mean, he's just my mate and he listens to me. So to me, even the odd day you feel a bit down, you've got a dog and he will just lift you up and right. You getting off your horse, you're taking me out, and I'm going to be running with him and taking him up the mountains. So, yeah, he's my baby. He's Reggie. Yeah.
Gorgeous dog, yeah.
I miss him like,
That's it.
And also outside your comfort zones, I'm like, just do something different. I'm doing the parachuting in Toronto in a few days, and it's just stuff like that. I think we should always remember, and I've said it a few times on this, but we've got keep up these commemorations, because people in the past, and that's why the flag is so important, for that flag have paid ultimate sacrifice. And if it wasn't for them, especially in the Second World War, I wouldn't be alive now. I would not be on this planet, So come on, let's just think about life and just always remember that people have paid an awful lot to get to how we're living now. In this society, we've got a great society, we've got a great life. Just embrace it and stop this whinging.
Love it. That's the note we should end on right there. That was amazing, man. Thank you so much, mate.